Sentence has been suspended for 5 years under strict conditions. The supplier, Jesse Pindile Kubeka, has also been ordered to repay the power utility more than 2.5 million rand. In 2020, Eskom investigation uncovered a syndicate that was paid to deliver 3 containers to the Tutuka power station. Only 1 container was delivered and it failed to meet the utility specifications. A container was valued at 60,000 rand, but the syndicate invoiced Eskom more than 2.5 million rand. President Cyril Ramaphosa has arrived in Harare, Zimbabwe for a working visit to participate as a guest of honor in the official opening of the Zimbabwe Agricultural Show. The Zimbabwe Agricultural Show is an annual event organized by the Zimbabwe Agricultural Society to facilitate and promote agricultural development in the country and to boost its economy. The Dabatodetsi reports.
This year, the show will be celebrating its 130th anniversary since its founding in 1895 and will run under the theme Building Bridges, Connecting Agriculture, Industry and Commerce. In 2024, the show attracted 570 exhibitors, including 13 international exhibitors. The presidency says that this visit by President Ramaphosa will also provide him with an opportunity to solidify the cordial relations that exist between South Africa and Zimbabwe.
Recapping the top story, South African Communist Party General Secretary Solly Mapaila says the party's relationship with the ANC is not ideal. He spoke to the media on the sidelines of the party's 3-day Central Committee plenary in Braamfontein, Johannesburg. I'm on Dilambana for SFM News Headlines at 3:30.
The Kwenajametsi have one game plan.
A win in their own backyard.
However, Usutu have a different mission. They are not traveling to Limpopo on holiday.
They are hunting for 3 points. This is the Betway Premiership.
Catch Makesi FC versus Amazulu FC this Saturday, 30 August at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC 1 and SABC Plus. Then on SABC radio stations at 3 p.m. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
Mzansi, the Powerball and Powerball Plus jackpots estimated at a total 85 million rand are your chance at an unforgettable Friday. Don't delay. Play Powerball for an estimated 37 million rand and Powerball Plus for an estimated 48 million rand today. Buy your tickets now in store on nationallottery.co.za, the mobile app, cell phone banking, or simply dial *120 *7529# for USSD. Panda, Pusha, play. Players must be 18 years old or play responsibly. E2 is the proud operator of the National Lottery.
Outsurance will do all they can to save you money on your car insurance premium. But what if they just can't? Well, they'll give you cash just for trying. That's right, just ask for 500 Rand cash. But wait, there's more. If you don't save and have been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years, you can ask for 1,500 Rand cash. Savings or cash, you always get something out.
Go to outsurance.co.za now for a 10-minute quote that could save you thousands.
What does you always get something out mean to you, Lorette?
Outsurance made it possible for us to live our dream, to travel more with the money in our pocket that we save.
Let me know, what is it?
725. It was unbelievable. My husband, he sits there on the chair and he's just nodding his head and say, yes, yes, yes. This is really not just an advertisement. This is really real.
Go to outsurance.co.za now for a 10-minute quote that could save you thousands. Licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's, and information online.
The Berea and the Atlas Lions are chasing gold. They both want to dance for victory in a do-or-die continental spectacle. This is the final of the Total Energies
African Nations Championship 2024.
Madagascar versus Morocco this Saturday, 30 August at 5 p.m. Live everywhere, for everyone, always on SABC Plus and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Coming up in your sports this hour, Shabalala inspired by Key Bafana Bafana call-up and the athletes fund Matiberi's trip to Italy training camp. More details at 3:30.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Well, it's Friday afternoon, but it doesn't mean we stop talking about the biggest issues that impacts the nation and the pulse of the nation. It certainly does move it every single day. So I have a sense that you have your fingers on the pulse. So do we. Let's connect. My name is Ashraf Garda. Wherever you may be in the country, whether it's Polokwane or Pretoria, we need to be talking to you. Or Port Shepstone, right? To call in, it's 086 000 2032. Then WhatsApp, and I can please keep it to 30 seconds maximum if you're sending out a voice note, 0614 104 107. But you can text message as well, and then you can tweet, hashtag The National Pulse. On a Friday, we have a fireside chat, so you know that, after 5 o'clock. Looking forward to speaking to a person who's had a career in politics, but now on the outside effectively talks about nation building in a very different way. That comes up later. Well, let's start by talking about an issue that is bound to evoke some sort of emotion or reaction, I'm sure about it, right? Because music composers and producers are calling on the South African Music Rights Organization, SAMRO, to step down following revelations of financial mismanagement. There are those who feel that some of the members are, well, overpaid, undeserving of their benefits. What really is the story behind that story? Let me first welcome Mzwakhe Mbuli, who's, as you know, a South African artist. Everybody knows who he is. Good to connect with you, as always, on the National Pulse, Mzwakhe.
Hi, Ashraf. Thank you very much to be on the National Pulse here.
Absolutely. When you said you're going to get a...
Kamini, Keys, and all your guys here. Thank you.
Thank you. Much appreciated. I'll tell you what, let's set the scene in terms of why. In fact, we are talking to Mzwakhe Mbuli. There was a meeting of members of SAMRO earlier today, and this clip reflects exactly what happened.
How come? Even in a court of law, judges and magistrates can recuse themselves when people are not happy. I am saying to you, arts practitioners, composers, people are not happy, regardless of your status, degrees and masters. People are not happy. Whatever decision you are going to take, at the end of the day, all of us are going to reject and dismiss and the group. Yes.
Yeah, boy. And I just want to say, further to Gabby.
Keep quiet and listen to a member.
What Gabby LaRue said.
Keep quiet and listen to a member.
Further to what Gabby LaRue said. The host has muted us.
Oh. Yeah.
He's busted.
Yeah, it's on record. It's recorded, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, well, there we are. Let's understand what actually took place there. So, Mzwakhe, tell us what happened there, so we understand it.
Ashraf, leadership is about serving people, and when you are a leader, you should have the interests of the people at heart. And you cannot lead people unless you love them. But if you exploit them, you undermine them, you intimidate them, that's not leadership. So in this sense, it's always said that the greatest amongst you must become your servant. You are having the only collecting society that is bigger than the others. There are others in this country. South African Music Rights Organization. So it means if people are played on SABC, on radio, any radio, the royalties are collected by SABC and sent to SAMRO, which is a collecting society. I think it happens even, you have other collecting societies like Sambra, which if you play overseas music, still they do the collection and then they send these things abroad. Now, in this country, composers, writers, I think Samro happens to be central. It's like the main collecting society that has actually serviced your Brenda Fassie, your Lucky Dube, whoever you can think of in this country. Now there's a board, in terms of governance. There's a board of directors at SAMRO. At some stage, the late Steve Kekan was once in that board. You can name them, Sibongile Kumar and them. Now, we are having a current board that is actually abusing the royalties of artists. Because at SAMRO, if, let's, for example, SAMRO is sitting with 250 million as we speak, you might find it 1/3 is unclaimed royalties or undocumented royalties. Now, because this thing is in their coffers, is accruing interest. The board members are privy to that information, and they tap into that. In terms of corruption, you see, the Konazi era is okay. People are I think, whistleblowers. within SAMRO, a CEO has been suspended. In politics, it's a set-aside kind of thing. A person within SAMRO, the whole CEO, became a whistleblower. There's 60 million that has been stolen at SAMRO. And there was a forensic that had to be instituted, and the results very clear. 3 members of SAMRO board, out of a number of them, were implicated and tainted. But these people are maintained within, then are protected by other board members because they all eat together. So I think it's, if you want to clear your name, Ashraf, rather say, let me stand aside so that I am cleared. Allow investigation to take its course. But at SAMRO, you have bullies. You have people who are educated to a master's and degrees. People who are not in music, who are not composers, but by virtue of the virtue that they are there, they are intimidating other people. They have a nerve to suspend a CEO. These guys, they are overpaying themselves. I'm not sure what is the salary scale of teachers, nurses, and doctors, academics at hospital. But these guys, Ashraf, they have taken the South Africans for a ride. They don't care whether you're Steve Kekani, Babsim Langeni, Chico, whoever. They don't respect even Miriam Makeba, let alone the artists that are alive, because the royalties, it's revenue for those families who have lost their loved ones, they're living in. So they're dealing with people who are abusing the royalties of artists in a nutshell.
So you made the point about in fact, the COO has been suspended, right? Suspended by the board, just so that we understand it. On what grounds was the COO
She is
suspended?
another Papita Dwakaram. She been fighting within, fighting alone. She cautioned, it's the person who could not be bribed. She refused to be bribed. She refused to be cornered. She refused to be captured. Mpho had to openly be a lone fighter against sharks. And I can tell you, the best thing for them to deal with her was to say she gets suspended. Suspended for what? What is the charge? You know, before to talk of CCMA, etc., the other people went public trying to justify why is she set aside. What about members of the board, Ashraf, who are implicated by people who are educated, learned in a forensic report, and that thing was open. But the last EGEM, which was especially called for people to account, these guys are refusing to account in South Africa.
So who makes up the board? I mean, just help us understand this here. Who makes up the board? I mean, how many board members, and how do they get appointed or elected? Yeah,
you see, SAMRO has got a modus operandi. There's a structure, whether I should call it a template. Members who, for example, we've got members of Sony Record Company that sits on the board. We've got independent record companies that have representative within the board. So it's just quite like today we had your Dan Nkosi was off a song, a hit song called Ganda Ganda Mkuku something. He was obviously appointed this year to be on the board. Let me give you another name just to make life easy. Last year or 2 years ago, Gloria Bosman, she was appointed within SAMRO board, but I'm sure she passed on 6 months before the end of a term. But so you can always have somebody like Sotix Mabuse was once a board member. Silo Chico Twala was once a board member. Okay. But it makes sense if you talk about people who are in the music fraternity. But currently at SAMRO, we've got somebody who's at vets, an academic, who had to do, Dr. Vilakazi, a book launch using the funds of SAMRO that made the COO to question these things. But as soon as you open your mouth and you question these things, you get actually suspended, intimidated. Okay. So I think there are 2-3 people blowers within SAMRO. But as I tell you, these people have been silenced. It's not acceptable in a democracy. It's not acceptable in South Africa. It's not acceptable in this kind of way. You talk of the doors of arts and culture, 70 years freedom charter. People have the right. They are composed. You cannot punish a cow for its milk. These guys, they are using God-given talents. So they cannot be punished as in the name of people who have the powers and the academic English and make sure that you have to have 16 days. They're playing with terms now. In terms of good governance,
let's just move on. I just want to get some clarity. So, in terms of what you spoke about, many of the royalties not being paid over, and therefore the call now for these board members to resign, right?
They're tainted, they're implicated. Yeah, the forensic report has actually implicated them.
Okay, what has been the response from them today?
They are arrogant. The response today is that the last AGM, they were removed, 3 of them implicated. Today, as bullies. decided to ensure, one, they refuse the physical meeting because it's like you are afraid of your own people that you lead. We are not in COVID-19, where we're supposed to do things virtually. They have flatly refused even presentation requests to ensure that everything happens under one roof, because you are dealing with people who are scared. The guilty are afraid, Ashraf. We're dealing with such people now. I think they are exposed. For the past 4 or 6 weeks, SAMRO has been receiving this negative publicity. As a result, people are refusing to pay SAMRO monies that should filter down to artists tomorrow. So there is an impasse. There is a problem. I'm glad it went to the national pass. We cannot longer stand and watch. People can no longer take advantage that Babsim Langen is blind. She cannot see. There are disabled artists. They cannot fight, Ashraf. We must fight for them. There are future generations coming. There are people who are in tertiary universities as we speak, studying music. They should come back here knowing that we've actually leveled the playing field.
Okay.
We've paved the way for future generations. This nonsense.
Just to tell you, in fact, we've reached out to the SAMRO board to get comment from them. They're involved in some meeting today, so they can't talk to us today. Hopefully, we'll get a response from them.
They'll never talk
as
to
soon
you.
as.
They'll never talk
I don't
to
know. I'm just saying we've invited them. Right?
Ashraf, it's on record. Even last week on Power FM, the CEO was supposed to appear. As soon as he realized that, as she was sitting at the foyer or reception, that other members of SAMRO were coming on board. We are members. SAMRO is an institution of composers and writers.
Let me understand this. Assuming you're not going to get your way, when I say you, your members of SAMRO like yourself, assuming you're not going to get your way, what then is your recourse? Meaning, there's a legal recourse. Can you ship them out? There's lawyers. Where does the Ministry of Sports, Arts and Culture come into this?
Yeah, no, maybe they are listening. No one is above the law, Ashraf. Even Mandela was dragged to court. Louis late. These guys are not above the law. Whatever they could do is unconstitutional. They will be dragged to the law. There are sheriffs. There are subpoena. There could be subpoena. They are not going to run away. There's even a current case opened at Hillbrow Police Station as we speak. Obviously, the wheels of justice, they take their own time. But these guys are not going to get away with murder. As I'm saying, there are courts in this country until the constitutional court. So we have the rights. There are advocates there that will ensure that justice is actually seen to be done. So rest assured, whatever they can do, they have the right to undermine X, Y, Z, but at the end of the day, they will actually appear before a court of law.
Let's follow that story. Let's leave it at that. Mzwakhe Mbuli, appreciate your time.
Much appreciated.
South African artist, part of the many members that make up SAMRO. Effectively, in this case, you're calling for the SAMRO members, the board that is, to step down following revelations of mismanagement. At this point in time, they haven't quite responded to that, but there's also been other accusations around the issues of royalties that's been ongoing. Linked to that has also been the story that's not directly linked, but the point about musicians and artists and whether they are actually getting the rough end of the stick. Or the short end, the stick, depends how you want to interpret that. This is the National Pulse. I'll tell you what, I'll take your calls right away. How much do you know about what's happening at SAMRO? Are you an artist yourself? You're aware of the allegations being leveled against the board, but what about the issues of royalties? How do we fix this? Because I think this is another conversation. If we have it 10 years ago and we copy and paste the conversation from then, we're bound to get the same sort of responses. Really, how do we fix it? What is the solution? 086 000 2032 to call in live, which I will take now, and you can WhatsApp now 0614 104 107. This is the National Pulse.
UJ ladies are gunning for victory. Meanwhile, TS Galaxy want to showcase why they are called the Queens. Who will walk away from the battlefield with jubilance? This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Catch UJ Ladies versus TS Galaxy Queens the Sunday 31 August at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC 1. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Are you looking for the best savings on spectacles? At Specsavers, enjoy 1,500 Rand off when you get tested at South Africa's trusted and most established optical group. Get 1,500 Rand off all frames in store, or use your 1,500 Rand off on our leading lens enhancements, such as Drive Light lenses that reduce artificial glare whilst driving. Book online or call your nearest store today. Affordable eye care, Specsavers. T's and C's apply.
Keeping your family healthy this winter can feel like a daunting task. Try the Lung Shield range. It includes capsules to support healthy lungs and immunity, a syrup for kids that supports the immune system and promotes lung health, and an effervescent with 13 essential ingredients to optimize immune function. Put your family's health first this winter with the Lung Shield range. Available without a prescription at leading pharmacies. Lung Shield, prescribed by doctors, recommended by pharmacists.
September 5 is Casual Day. Time to get your Casual Day sticker and gear in support of persons with disabilities. Looking beyond the label, your contribution makes a tangible impact. Visit www.ncpd.org.za. Many thanks from the National Council of and for Persons with Disabilities.
This is an SABC-supported initiative.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
So, are you connected to the National Pulse? What for you moves the National Pulse? Here's a comment, as I asked you for WhatsApp comments, all calls. Here's one about Mzwakhe, as he's just put his position forward.
Hi, Ashraf and the listeners. It's so good to hear the voice of Mzwakhe Mbuli. I have grown up listening to him, and now he has just vanished. That guy, Babam lawyer, that guy is good, man. He must come back. Please come back, Mzwakhe. Come back. Our children doesn't know you.
Come back to where? He would say he's never gone anywhere. You know, he's around and he's fighting some big issues as well. Thank you for that. He may enjoy that too. Here's another one.
Hello, Ashraf. Good afternoon. This is Mabena again. I still reiterate that Mkhwanazi must be made president. I'm sure you are following the events in Natal concerning this taxi industry and the so-called taxi organization who have now become a terrorist organization instead. They are terrorizing people of this country. But he has managed to bring them to order in just one move. And he made them to sit down, forcibly so, by arresting them and brought them to us, to their senses. And they sat down at a round table. And I am sure he was part of the people that drew out the plan of how they would operate. From now on, he has actually achieved what this government has failed to do in 30 years' time. They have never done that. I will not only single out Cyril. For the past 30 years, they have failed to do so and just brought peace to the province of KwaZulu-Natal. This is the person that we want to run the country. Thank you.
Maybe you want him to run the country. I don't know about anybody else. I hear you. Well, thanks for that. Firstly, by the way, we're going to chat about that issue of Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi regarding the 121 dockets sent back to KZN around 10 to 4. So do listen out to that, as you said, him for president. But do keep those sound bites to 30 seconds. I saw it as well over. We allowed it today, but we don't really want to do that because it just means others can't get on board. I hope you do understand. Right, here's one.
Ashraf, good afternoon, man. Flores from the beautiful Winelands. Ashraf, the so-called mistake that was made by the NERSA board. Man, that's not a schoolboy error. That's massive amounts of money. And I think it should just be fair that these guys should be shown the door. They don't care about us South Africans. They need to be shown the door. Have a good show. Bye-bye.
Well, there we are. Listen, many people agree with you, and we touched on it yesterday. Of course, we didn't speak to NERSA directly. But it's true, like whatever the mess up that happened, now we have to pay the brunt of it. It's like, okay, we made a mess, calculating error. Like, sorry guys, deal with it. Just make it happen for yourself. Like, how do we do that?
There is a process in this country on how a person becomes a president. So sometimes speaking is just speaking, and it will end up there as just speaking. Anyway, I hope that someone was listening to Mzwakhe, someone who knows music, and can take what he was saying and release some beats, because his speaking voice is similar to his voice when he's doing poetry. Thanks, it's Bongi here.
Thanks for that, Sisbong. Yeah, he probably would appreciate that. I would think, right? Here's another on the similar topic. Yeah.
How about Mzwakembuli make an example about himself and not Nelson Mandela and relate? Remember, he did time himself back in the day. So yeah,
I must say, when he said
find
that,
that very interesting.
when he
Good afternoon, Ashraf.
thank you. When he said that, I thought about that too. When I was waiting, I mean, it wasn't completely relevant to the conversation, so there was no need for that. But I hear you, and you put it on the agenda.
Ashraf and the SFM listener, the MMMC of Transport at the Kureni is blaming the government for the strike of the taxi. I don't know actually we people, what are we wanting to our life? How can we blaming the government for something like people, they're doing it purposely? And they are aware that there's no means of other transport because government rely on them. While those people are very unreliable. They terrorizing the people they do. I'm very happy for them. I mean, for the government today who's taking the decision to impounding their cars. They can impound them every day so that we can be fine. Particularly here at the Kurleni.
Okay, and there's more, right? That conversation about Nehawu also won't go away.
Oh, hi, Ashraf. Errol, yeah. I hope you're well. You know, the other day you heard Nehawu there, and they quite rightly said that AfriForum were to blame for sanctions and high tariffs being placed against us. But you know what? They are not the only one. Julius Malema singing the song Kill the Boer, Kill the Farmer was also responsible for sanctions being applied against us. Remember when Ramaphosa and his delegation visited the Oval at the White House, Donald Trump played a video of Ramaphosa singing that song, Kill the Boer. And he turned to Ramaphosa and he said, why isn't this man being arrested? So yeah, he is one of the causes. Errol, Durban.
Okay, but it doesn't necessarily mean, and I hear what you're saying, and we know what the Constitution has said about it, the rulings, but we also know that it hasn't translated into the action of killing the Boer, killing the farmer, and that's where I would differ with a person like Donald Trump, for example, even if you may agree with him about the sentiments of Malema not being what you want to hear. So, I mean, we have to look beyond that, right? Here's another on Mkwanazi.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. I'm Svido in Guatemala. People shouldn't take it too far by saying Mkwanazi should become the president of the country. It's one thing running after criminals and another running the country itself. Can people be given a chance to do what they are good at and be given support on it than being moved around to be given more responsibilities? Thank you.
Okay. I mean, I do hear you. You know, people tend to jump very, very quickly. And I think I mentioned it the other day. It was like, you know, Imtiaz Suleiman for president now. You know, at the moment, he's very much out of the political space. 1,000 people have said. So he's like, no, where I am right now as part of the gift of the givers and then being able to lobby government has been effective for the country. So we think the moment someone's pretty good, it's like, okay, so-and-so for president, it may actually destroy their careers. Think about that. 3:30. Here's the news headlines with Ondela.
Thank you, Ashraf. On the news headlines, the SACP says limited funds will not deter it from contesting the 2026 local government elections. Parents have until Sunday to register grade 1 and grade 8 learners in Mpumalanga. The Provincial Education Department has set this month end as deadline to register learners for the 2026 academic year. And parents have until Sunday to register grade 1 and grade 8 learners in Mpumalanga. The Provincial Education Department has set this month end as deadline to register learners for the 2026 academic year. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M2 eastbound in central Johannesburg has a crash before Heidelberg Road. The N1 northbound in Midrand, a crash after Olifantsfontein Road. And on the M1 southbound in Melrose, a crash near Athol Oaklands Road. In KZN, the N3 westbound, a crash at the M13 Paradise Valley interchange. The M4 northbound, slow moving through Umhlanga. On the N3 southbound in Moerefeer, a truck crash near Headcote interchange. And on the M19 eastbound in Reservoir Hills, there's ramp closure with no access to Mountbatten Drive. In Cape Town, the N2 outbound has a crash before Muway. All lanes are open. The N1 outbound is slow moving towards Okavango Road, and the R304 in Stellenbosch is where a fatal crash reported between Masitandane Road and the R310 Adamtas Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapele.
Well, a very good afternoon to you, Ashraf, and our listeners. Today, I'm actually out in Sandton at the Sandton Hotel celebrating Women's Month with the SAFM, the SAFM ladies. But let's get straight into what's happening in the world of sport. Starting off with rugby, Suez de Bruin has named his Springbok women team to face Italy in their second Rugby World Cup match. Utility back Nadine Roos will start at fullback and Unam Toos at scrum half for the Springbok women against Italy in York, while Kumisa Kawe and Eloy Webb will make their first appearances at the Women's Rugby World Cup at the York Community Stadium, and the game is on Sunday. Then in football, Kaizer Chiefs attacker Mduduzi Shabalala has been selected for the Bafana Bafana Senior National Team A squad, or the first time since turning professional 3 years ago, and now his focus is on improving his numbers. Now, Shabalala, who was part of the Bafana Bafana team that finished second in this year's COSAFA Cup, losing to Angola in the final, counts just 8 goals and 5 assists from 81 matches that he's played at the top flight level since 2022. Now, to be a regular feature in Hugo Bruce's squad, Shabalala says that he knows the number definitely must improve. Elsewhere, Liverpool manager Arne Slot remained tight-lipped about Newcastle United striker Alexander Isak's future. This is amid speculation surrounding the player's status as the Premier League transfer window approaches its 1st of September deadline. Now, Slot's press conference, which is ahead of Sunday's game against Arsenal, was basically centered around transfer activities, with reports suggesting that Newcastle may have secured Stuttgart forward Nick Wolfmaid. Now, Isak was the subject of £100 million, which is around $148.34 million bid for Liverpool earlier this month, and that one was reported by the English media. Now, while Liverpool and Arsenal have both won their opening 2 games, Slot says that it was very important to avoid dropping points this early against Mikel Arteta's team, who are hungry for a league title after finishing as runners-up the last 3 seasons. Then in athletics, reigning African Coach of the Year, Thabo Matibedi, has revealed that his athletes, Bayanda Walaza, Sinesipho Dambile and Gift Liotlela, have funded his trip to Italy to assist them ahead of the World Championships. Now, with the World Senior Champs scheduled for the 13th to the 21st of September in Tokyo, they want their coach nearby to guide their preparations. Many South African coaches often miss out on overseas training camps, and that is due to funding challenges, but Matibedi considers him quite fortunate that his athletes are stepping in to make it possible. Then in tennis, 3rd seed Alexandra Zverev put in a clinical performance to dispatch British number 3 Jacob Fernley in straight sets, 6-4, 6-4 and 6-4 to reach the 3rd round of the US Open in New York. The German will next face Felix Auger-Aliassime of Canada in the next round. On the note, it is a wrap from my side for now. I'll have more in the next hour.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
Do you know what's hiding behind the colorful packaging of unhealthy food? Big food companies target children with unhealthy packaged foods that hide high levels of sugar, salt, and fat, which could lead to heart disease, diabetes, and hypertension. But the truth is hidden from consumers. Front of package warning labels are a proven solution to help consumers make informed decisions. The government must act now. We have the right to know what's in our food. Demand front of package warning labels. Sign the petition on heala.org. HEALA.org. change.org by the 30th of September.
Dikwena Jametsi have one game plan, a win in their own backyard. However, Usuthu have a different mission. They are not traveling to Limpopo on holiday. They are hunting for 3 points. This is the Betway Premiership. Catch Makesi FC versus Amazulu FC this Saturday, 30 August at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC 1 and SABC Plus. Then on SABC radio stations at 3 p.m. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
So we're going to chat to Imbali Ntuli as part of our Friday Fireside Chatter. Looking forward to that conversation and talk about all things politics, her company, organization, Groundwork Collective, the DA, the National Pulse, the National Dialogue, and so much more, right? But of course, also tracing a fascinating journey that she's had to get where she is right now. Well, what about the journey of European countries and their pursuit of Iran? 3 European countries, France, Germany, and the United Kingdom, have triggered the process to reimpose sanctions against Iran over its nuclear program. The 3 countries known as the E3 are accusing Tehran of violating the 2015 nuclear deal commitments. However, the Iranian Foreign Ministry has condemned the move by those 3 nations, calling it provocative and an unnecessary escalation, in fact. So what is really going on? Let's find out with Musa Mdunge, who is a PhD candidate at the University of Dundee in Scotland and, of course, talks politics. Musa, I appreciate your time as always. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. So what really is going on here?
Yeah, so the E3, as they're famously known, Germany, Britain, as well as France, have basically, started a process of calling on the UN to basically move on what they call snapback resolution, which would allow these countries, or the United Nations rather, to impose sanctions on Iran should it not meet the points of agreement as per what was signed in 2015. And in many ways, what I see in terms of this is it is a tactic to deal with 2 things. Yes, on the one hand, it is to deal with Iran, to bring them closer to the negotiation table and to weaken their negotiation position fundamentally. But it also is about weakening Russia as well. And that is why Russia is such a vehement opponent of this particular move, but it is not likely that they can do much to do about it, because any resolution to try and counter this will likely face a veto from either the United States, Britain, or France.
So, I mean, how realistic is this? I'm thinking about people listening to us to say, like, what is this fixation on Iran and not others? Not that I'm suggesting that Iranians are correct.
Well, look, I mean, Iran for the longest time has been proposed by Western intelligence, has been pursuing a nuclear weapons program for the longest time, even though they would argue that there's limited, evidence to speak to that account. And in many ways, what makes Iran a fascinating country in this particular instance is not just the fact that there is a belief that they do have the resolve, the potential, and the resources to pursue a nuclear weapons program, but it's looking at the region that they belong to, a very strategic region in terms of global trade. You think of the fact of the Strait of Hormuz, for example, which is controlled by the Iranians as well, which is a key trading point, and as well as, the splinter forces that Iran supports across the region, whether it's Hezbollah, Hamas, or the Houthis. So in many ways, it is about, Western strategy to try and reel the Middle East towards its orbit in terms of how it sees the region needs to be run in terms of global peace, but as well as there's the bigger boogeyman, which is Russia, and even a bigger boogeyman, I would argue, which is China as well, which will have a huge say in terms of any peace process in this particular region.
Okay. What then? I mean, so how much does this carry, this threat, this action, this move against the Iranians?
Well, fundamentally, it would move to limit their ability to develop weapons, which are very key at this particular moment. If you consider the relationship between Iran currently and Russia and the provision of drones, for example, that are flowing between both countries, it would limit the ability for Iran to be an effective, weapons salesman in terms of the conflict that's happening in Ukraine. And I think that's also where I think the three are trying to look at this in terms of long term. But of course, for the Iranian economy, which is already facing a huge challenge in terms of economic sanctions from the United States. This is an economy that really is struggling, and many may argue that there may be a strategy by these particular three states to push regime change in Iran. We know that has been something that Trump has spoken about, though he has backtracked at times, and it may be that the three countries are also pushing for that now. One, to get closer to Trump, who is his own sort of challenge for these particular leaders. But on the other hand, it's about limiting Russia and China. And in many ways, they see that they see the key linchpin to that being Iran. In many ways, by targeting Iran, the long-term view is it targets the ability for both Russia and China to project power and influence in the region.
So therefore, what's likely to happen? Because I'm saying, there's this issue of threat of sanctions once again, but as I've already mentioned, there are just so many examples. This is one of them, and many others of, countries taking a very strong moral high ground stand against one country for one issue and then overlooking another. And then sometimes even taking the stand doesn't amount to anything anyway. So where do you think this will all end? What's the bottom line to this?
Certainly, you raise a good point here. The contradictions that often, flow in on policy and how countries project power and project their interests in a particular region. And in particular, you see, Russia push for a counter resolution in the United Nations. That is not likely going to pass. As I said, it will likely be vetoed. And beyond bluster and rhetorics at this point, even from, those who support Iran, there's not much they can do because as per, the deal that was signed, and which was a smart thing, by the way, by the leaders in 2015 who signed the deal to say, in order to make sure that, Iran stays faithful to this process, let us ensure that these particular sanctions are agreed upon. And so in many ways, Iran has got to either come to the table or stand on its position, but that will come to a cost. And I think for the Iranian leaders, given the year that Iran has had with the strikes on its nuclear facilities, with Israel's strikes on Iran, it is a time where they've got to also check themselves and check the temperature in their own country. Because I think that is really what these E3 countries are trying to do, to push some sort of a resistance from within by putting all of this pressure from without. Okay. And that is really the strategy.
Would that mean attempted regime change by putting external pressure in the hope that it'll be drummed up support internally for ultimate regime change? I mean, would that be how you see it?
Look, that's exactly how I see it, really. Because they know the regime they're dealing with, and it is a regime that has stood its ground for since 1979, really not moved. We've seen that the human rights record in Iran is not something that I think that Iran can be proud of in any way or regard. And in many ways, it raises questions to bring the South African element into this, right? For a country like South Africa, that yes, on the one end speaks about non-alignment, but also pushes the issue of human rights. The late Minister of Foreign Affairs, Alfred Nzo, once said, we will spread democracy and human rights to the far corners of the world. Now, what has happened to that objective in South African foreign policy? Consider, of course, the relationship between MTN and Iran Cell. And, as much as South Africa may deny that it has any involvement in funding anything in Iran, but the fact speaks that, by investing in the country and many of those funds going to the state, in many ways, indirectly, you are in the same way that the West can be accused indirectly of funding the war in Ukraine. So in many ways, I think leaders of the world have got to check themselves, and I think the G20 presents a moment for that.
Wow, that's another big question, just how much clout does the G20 have? And in this case here, if the USA attends or does not attend. Just the last thing,
yes.
I mean, I've noticed the Iranians have condemned the move by those three nations. Has anybody else outside the three nations and Iran said anything in response to this call to reimpose sanctions on Iran?
Oh, Russia has already responded. Their spokesperson in the Foreign Office has already stated that they will already push for a counter resolution that will then seek to extend the relief that Iran will face from sanctions. Now, and they're arguing that this is because there is a negotiation happening currently, and that is the same position that Iran has pushed, that, it is futile and counter strategic to be imposing these sanctions at a time where they argue we already are at the negotiation table. Remember, it is the United States that left this agreement, and all the rest of the P5, including Germany, continued in terms of pushing for a resolution on Iran's nuclear program. So, whether there'll be broader support, I think likely that will happen. But the key event is going to happen in the United Nations Security Council. But it is likely that, the E3 plus the United States will stand firm. And it is, I don't see beyond, as I said, the blast and rhetoric, what Russia, what China can really do at this point, given this agreement and how it was signed.
Okay, that's where we're going to leave it. Musa Mdunge, lots to reflect on there. PhD candidate at the University of Dundee in Scotland. Thanks for your time here on The National Pulse.
I'm Andile Ncube umzilankati isiqongo sinoJoji Ntomba eyazi ngizala ke suka le emzimkhulu egugweni ila ke inkaba yasala khona. Your son got a star on his forehead, brightens your every mood when you get as old as I am. What do I like about Mzansi or love? It's home. Beyond football, I enjoy cricket. Or Andile ngesixhosa ngo Ace Mabheka. My favorite nickname of all time, like Captain Yama 2000. In everything we do, just like the African continent is the beginnings of life, right? Just like women are the beginnings of life. The SABC and SABC Sport is exactly that.
Catch Andile, Captain Yama 2000 Ncube on match days, live on Latuma. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
So you thought you were building a business? In this economy? Good luck. But day by day, somehow it grew. You became payroll, procurement, PR, and pressure valve. You kept going when the freezer didn't freeze, the bucket didn't budge, and the bank balance barely blinked. What's that saying again? What doesn't kill your business makes it stronger? Or at least it should be that. So you thought you were building a business. You weren't. It was building you. Because this isn't just what you do anymore. It's who you are. And you don't trust just anybody to protect it. Chat to your broker about Old Mutual Insure Business Insurance. Protect what built you. Old Mutual Insure Limited is a licensed FSP and non-life insurer.
This Women's Month, SAFM stands with the women shaping South Africa's future. Under the theme, Building Resilient Economies for All. We honor the pioneers, the problem solvers, and the everyday heroes driving change. Stay tuned as SAFM brings you powerful stories and meaningful conversations that move us. SAFM, celebrating women, celebrating progress. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. You're listening to the National Pulse.
Well, here's a conversation that's certainly going to move you. General Fani Masamola's revelation that the 121 dockets that were removed, remember that story from the KZN Political Killings Task Team? Well, those dockets now will be sent back to the province. So what does all this mean? We hear now from Professor Nirmala Gopal on how, we should interpret all of this. Professor Gopal, appreciate your time. Prof. Gopal is a criminologist from the University of KwaZulu-Natal. Thank you for connecting with us on the National Pulse.
It's my pleasure, Ashraf, and thank you for having me on your show.
Thank you. So just give us first some perspective so that we understand it fully. How did it be? Because we're talking about the dockets being sent back to the province. So how did it come to be that the dockets actually exited the province in the first place?
So from the information that we have, Ashraf, obviously when the political task team was asked to halt their mandate, then those dockets would have been transferred to whichever centralized database that they have it at. But of course, I think now that there seems to be a resuscitation of the political killings task team, it has been retransferred to them.
Okay. So in that case, I mean, what would the implications there be of this? Because clearly there are names, there are people, names, actions mentioned in those dockets, right?
So I think in the first instance, those dockets will have to now be investigated and investigated thoroughly. But I think the bigger issue for us right now is the fact that those dockets were prematurely removed, etc., and it raises issues of why were they, and of course, anecdotally we understand why they were removed in the first place. But I think what this does now is that it gives credibility to Commissioner Mkhwanazi's allegations.
It certainly does. I mean, you said, anecdotally we know that they were removed and we know why. Like, it sounds like a crazy question, but it needs to be asked. Why do you think they were removed?
Well, I think the speculation that is rife at the moment is that they were removed because of the damning evidence against high-profile people in the country. And I think we can safely say from the anecdotal evidence as well that we have political figures that are also part of those allegations.
Now, part of Lieutenant Mkhwanazi's comments or allegations suggest there's effectively been a complete mess in the running of investigations around the police and safety and security in the country. So even though these dockets will then be received, what are the checks and balances to ensure nothing goes wrong after that?
I think it's going to be very important, and I'm hoping that part of the mandate of the Madlanga Commission is to also have some kind of oversight over these dockets, because I think that was one of the major issues that prompted Commissioner Mkhwanazi to actually make those revealing allegations. So hopefully we will have some kind of oversight over it, but I think also in the interim, with our interim Minister of Policing, it is hoped for the sake of the democracy that he too will have some oversight, ensuring that the way in which it is investigated, these dockets are investigated are objective, and that no stone is left unturned, because at the end of the day, justice must be seen to be served.
I mean, what's your sense on, the literal point of justice must be served? I mean, that's pretty straightforward. We all get it. But do we get a sense that, in fact, there is this political battleground being played out in front of us, so nothing is ever as straightforward as it seems or as it ought to be?
Unfortunately, I think the evidence in front of us actually does demonstrate that, probably because of the political interference. Then we try all kinds of strange things to make sure that some of the dockets disappear, that procedurally we err, because I'm sure most of us realize that if there's a procedural error, then those cases can also be thrown out of court. So I think with political interference, it's quite a common known factor that you will have this ping-pong scenario.
How do you think this will play out? And I know we're speculating here, and I know there's a commission that's been delayed and that's going to finally get it away soon. In a broader sense, away from just the narrow confines of 121 dockets, how do you think this will play out in terms of, names and allegations mentioned about people that many of them we don't know, but others big name players who maybe there was great reason for those dockets to be squashed?
So, yeah, of course, it's mere speculation at this point in time. But my prediction or my speculation is that at the end of the day, the country has to be protected as well. And if we have too many politicians who are implicated, it will definitely further undermine and weaken perceptions around our democracy, etc. So I think that the state is going to have to, or the government is going to have to play that very safely, and perhaps the lower-hanging fruit might just get swept under the carpet, while a higher-hanging fruit, depending on the reputational risk to the country, it might have to be handled differently.
Okay, and the big debate is what are the whole low-hanging fruits, what are the high ones? Let's leave it at that for now. Professor Nirmala Gopal, criminologist from the University of KwaZulu-Natal. the mind of a criminal. What happens next? We don't know, but we do know about 121 dockets now being returned to KwaZulu-Natal province. Much appreciate your time, Prof. Gopal. What it means, we've got some time to get your thoughts as well before we get to the top of the hour. And I'll tell you, you can call in live right away. You can WhatsApp now to 061 No, let me get that right. 0614 104 107. And to call in, it's 086 000 2032. I'll check your WhatsApps in a moment.
You're listening to the National Pulse.
Right, so let's hear what you have to say. I mean, one of the questions that sometimes gets forgotten is the issue of nuclear powers. We'll talk about that in a second. But here's one about Julius.
Hi, Ashraf. Thank you very much for the good program. I don't know if there's any other constitutional judgment that has been disputed like this of Malema. Is the kill the boys, kill the farmer not a closed deal in terms of the judgment? He went to the Constitutional Court and it was closed. So we can't be debating on the Constitutional Court judgment. Or is that normal? We can also reverse all the other judgment that they pass and that become law to start discussing it.
Well, look, I mean, we certainly can debate it, and we do that all the time. And you know, sometimes because the context change, well, the context is the context, the circumstances changes that warrants us debating something that maybe 5 years ago, 10 years ago, didn't need to be debated.
Hi, Ashraf. The outcome of the political funding is very interesting, where we see the DA is in top with 32 million and with ANC in 7 million, and the Action South Africa, where Mashaba fund himself for 520,000. This is very interesting just because we see that the ANC is no longer funded by the other political, by the companies, and they must fund the DA, which is a crime-free and corruption-free. We like these things, and I like these things, even though some of the journalists maybe will never like the DA. My name is Les.
Les, you like this. You always talk about the DA and nothing else, right? I'm not saying you're wrong, but you come across as a spokesperson. But listen, I mean, it's not like the parties can't receive funding; they just have to be declared. And I mean, what we've heard, you know, is the DA in this latest quarter gets massive funding. It's completely disproportionate, by the way. I mean, make of that what you will, right?
JJ and Stick Spirit. Ashraf, your guest is saying you're right. The purpose of the Europeans and the Trump administration is to make sure that no Middle East country has got any firepower. It's not about nuclear. They could have done nuclear a long time ago. It's just that they don't want any firepower.
Okay, that's your interpretation. Of course, half the country may nod and say, yes, you're right, but others may disagree. It's up to you, of course. This is the National Pulse. You've got the fingers on the pulse. I need to hear you as soon as I can. It's 4 o'clock. It's time for the news with Ondela Mbana.
Thank you, Ashraf. On the top stories, SACP to ensure a success of its election campaign, and Gaza City declared a combat zone. For SFM News, I am Ondela Mbana, and a very good afternoon. The SACP says limited funds will not deter it from contesting the 2026 local government elections. The party's General Secretary Solly Mapaila says they will rely on grassroots support to ensure the success of their campaign. He spoke to the media on the sidelines of the party's 3-day Central Committee plenary in Braamfontein, Johannesburg.
We don't have money, and everybody knows that, but we will contest elections without money. We'll prove it. That's our posture. There's no capital that's going to fund us, but the people of South Africa, the working class, will respond to this challenge, and I think we'll have to have a community-based elections campaign without money.
Parents have until Sunday to register grade 1 and grade 8 learners in Mpumalanga. The Provincial Education Department has set this month end as deadline to register learners for the 2026 academic year. Spokesperson Gerald Sambo says they want learning and teaching to start in earnest next year. The Secretary of the Claremont and Guadabega Taxi Associations, Busiso Kenyezi, has expressed his satisfaction with the outcome of a meeting with the KwaZulu-Natal E-Hailing Council at the Guadabega police station today. The Provincial Transport Department set up the meeting with the two bodies after an incident earlier this week when taxi drivers and owners allegedly assaulted e-hailing drivers. A shot was also fired at one e-hailing driver's vehicle. The police have taken 15 taxi drivers and owners in for questioning following the incident in Guadabega outside Pinetown. Kanyezi says they were able to iron out their differences, including the conducting of roadblocks, so that they can root out illegal operators.
We said it 50-50. The reason being, there were some decisions or some things that were said that we don't necessarily in agreement with. The way forward, we will have a joint roadblocks, which will include RTI, Metro Corps, SAPS, and our subdivision, Hlokomela, in order for us to be able to abstract or to get those illegal operators on those designated routes.
2 people, including a 4-year-old child, have been shot and wounded in an alleged gang-related incident in East Region, Mitchell's Plain on the Cape Flats. Police spokesperson Joseph Swartboy says the incident happened this morning. He says no arrests have been made.
It is confirmed that another male escaped injury when the unidentified suspect shot at him. The suspect then fled the scene and is yet to be arrested. The motive for this attack is believed to be gang-related. Mitchells Plain police are investigating 3 counts of attempted murder.
The Correctional Services National Commissioner Makgoti Thobagale is appealing to the youth to refrain from abusing drugs and alcohol. He was speaking at the Correctional Services Department's annual International Overdose Awareness Day campaign in Molechi village outside Polokwane in Limpopo. Some parolees have also been roped in to educate learners on the effects of substance abuse. Thobagale says that they want to empower the youth to make informed choices. Israel's military says it has declared Gaza City a combat zone as it ramps up its preparations to seize the territory's largest population zone. It also announced it found the body of an Israeli killed in the October the 7th Hamas attacks. Recapping the top story, the SACP says limited funds will not deter it from contesting the 2026 local government elections. I'm Wandilambana for SAFM News Headlines at 4:30.
In your sports this hour, Brown excited for Bok's biggest game since Rugby World Cup final, and we hear from Mokoka on why the Cape Town Marathon remains special. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N3 southbound in Alexandra, queuing towards London Road. The M1 southbound in Parktown, slow moving towards Houghton Drive exit. And the N3 southbound in Bedfordview, queuing towards Van Buren Road. In KZN, the M4 northbound slow moving through Umhlanga. On the N3 southbound in Mooirivier, a truck crash reported near Hidcote interchange, and on the N3 westbound, a crash at the M13 Paradise Valley interchange. In Cape Town, the N1 outbound slow moving on Plattekloof Hill. The N2 outbound is slow moving towards Bunga Avenue, and Main Road is slow moving through Cork Bay. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
Keeping your family healthy this winter can feel like a daunting task. Try the Lung Shield range. It includes capsules to support healthy lungs and immunity, a syrup for kids that supports the immune system and promotes lung health, and an effervescent with 13 essential ingredients to optimize immune function. Put your family's health first this winter with the Lung Shield range. Available without a prescription at leading pharmacies. Lung Shield, prescribed by doctors, recommended by pharmacists.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
SA Sport Awards reflect our collective nation-building spirit. Mzansi's sport heroes and heroines have shown resilience, persistence, passion, discipline, and world-class achievements in the sports fraternity. Let us celebrate #IzinjaZeGame. Catch the 18th Annual SA Sport Awards on Sunday, 24 August at 7:30 p.m. on SABC Plus and SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4, then on SABC 1 at 8 p.m. Brought to you by the Department of Sport, Arts and Culture in partnership with SASCOG and SABC Sport. Celebrating sporting excellence.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
So we're going to chat to Imbali Ntuli later on as part of the Friday Fireside Chat. And I hope you're going to join me because it's going to be really, we're going to have a really good conversation. I have no doubt about it. Typical Friday chill, but great leadership conversations will come through amongst the light-hearted shades of the conversation. There's also an update coming up on an issue we've been touching on, the Interpol conference, right? Today's day 3, the final day. We'll have an update on that too. And then as well that issues of relief funding for people in the Nelson Mandela region, Bay, that is, we should have touched on it yesterday and we couldn't do that, but we'll do that sometime today. But let's start now for the second hour of the show by talking about this 1 year and make of this one what you will, right? News 24 broke a story about actor and comedian Anton Taylor's home being raided by the Hawks after a satirical video that he posted. Okay, maybe that's what they do every single day, but he didn't just post it about anybody. He posted it about the KZN Police Commissioner, Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi, and the suspended Police Minister Senzo Mchunu. Now, what we'll do is we're going to get to Anton in a moment, but let's first play a part of that video so you can get a sense of what I'm talking about.
But the reason I get them to investigate Mkhwanazi is because I'm telling them, you are next. You know, Mkhwanazi, he's not stopping with these hijackers and the criminals and the drug mafia. He's coming for the politicians. So I convince them, you must be very scared. I'm celebrating because it's like so obvious that Mkhwanazi comes for the criminals and the politicians, and now they're investigating him. So now the only problem that can happen is if the people get angry and they rise up and they shout at the politicians. So for me, all the criminals, what we pray is that the public does not protect Mkhwanazi.
Okay, that's the gist of that. There's clearly been developments around that. Anton Taylor now with me. Anton, appreciate your time. Actor, comedian, and now somebody who's had his home raided.
Exactly, Ashraf. It's an absolute pleasure to be on the show. And firstly, thank you for having me. Always interesting listening to my attempts at an Eastern European accent being played live back to me. But yes, I can now add raided by the highest police force in the country to my resume.
So, I mean, there's really two parts to this, and it's an interesting conversation with you because one is it's because it affects you directly, but the other is because you're this political satirist, you effectively, even now, you're making satire of this anyway. And I saw your latest video. So you're involved on the one hand and you're giving commentary on yourself too, isn't it?
Yeah, I would say so, and I think, I really do try to go for all sides of the political spectrum. And, for those my followers, they'll know that you do poke the bear. And I must say, I was just very surprised that this, of all videos, was the one that sort of raised the ire so much, because I wasn't, in my opinion, or certainly compared to what I've said, I wasn't that hard on, in my opinion, Senzo Mchunu. So when I found out that they'd raided my house, I was quite confused.
So let's just be clear. You made some comments. I mean, I'm not going to play the full video again. We've played parts of it. Just repeat some of the things that you said about him, and I accept the fact that it's satire, so it's a bit of fun making, right? What did you say? And then we'll talk about just why we think he may have been angered by it.
Well, so firstly, I prefaced it by saying I am a foreign criminal. So I think that sort of allows people to know that it's satirical. And I said I make money off cash in transit, hijackings, and drugs. But then I said that this General Mkhwanazi in KZN was a big thorn in my side because he'd been shutting down my criminal operations. And I said that I had paid and bribed Senzo Mchunu to investigate Mkhwanazi. This was around the time in March when IPID had launched an investigation, and there were reports at that time that it would have been prompted by Mkhunu. His office subsequently later denied this. But so at the time, in late March, what I said was I bribed him with a BMW and some ladies of the night. And I said, as was said in the clip, that I convinced him that if he didn't get Mkhwanazi, he would come for him, Mkhunu, next. So that was the gist of it, yeah.
Okay. Now, people who have satire, they could be acting in a movie, and that's a type of satire. They could be doing a set on a stage, and nowadays they do it on social media, whether it's Instagram or TikTok, I think, in the main, right? I mean, of course, you become very popular doing that, and of course, you hopefully get some money with your followers and maybe some sponsorship. I don't know. That's another whole discussion, right? But do you expect, your audience to take you seriously, or is it a given that the audience, including the people that you mentioned, know that come on, you're just talking nonsense?
Well, I think, if I'm to be honest, my videos are viewed like that video that we're talking about across TikTok and Instagram has been viewed more than 1 million times. And the percentage of people who don't get that it's a joke, I mean, they statistically are there, but statistically it's a very small amount. I mean, there might, of course, be people who don't find it funny or people who find it offensive. But by and large, everybody sort of knows that I'm joking. I was very surprised. I thought that Police Minister Mkhunu believed that I actually am a criminal. So I didn't know if it was a generational thing, or quite what it was that disallowed him from seeing that this is clearly satirical.
Okay, so then in terms of raiding your home, they raided your home for what purpose, and what's happened next?
Well, here's the thing, if he had pressed a charge of defamation or criminal injuria, I wouldn't have agreed with it, but I could have perhaps understood where it was coming from. The affidavit was written on it crimes against the state, which is, equivalent to sort of treason. And they said that they had to seize my phone because they needed the evidence that this was my phone. I'm not sure why they needed that evidence. When we met with the Hawks, we said, no, we admit that I posted it. You don't need the phone to corroborate. They'd also used triangulation services where you use cell phone masks to find my location, which is a very expensive exercise, normally only used for very serious criminals. So it's hard for me to believe that this was just a random case that would have been handled the same way were it not the Minister of Police that had lodged it.
And who was the judge, therefore, who signed it, the actual warrant?
It was a Judge Erasmus of the Western Cape. I can't remember his initials. I think it's C.A. Erasmus. But he's the one who signed the warrant.
All right. How I think one of the things that you make in the subsequent video that you posted is essentially how important can you be that the Hawks would be set off in chase of yourself? I mean, when their resources could be best used elsewhere, isn't it?
Well, exactly. The Hawks policemen, there were two of them that were flown down from Pretoria. They were put up in hotels to raid. If they'd called me, they would have been able to just meet up with me. I wasn't there at the time. They had to fly back. Then the one Hawks official flew back. So, I'm very aware, particularly in the Cape, we have crime. I mean, crime is endemic in South Africa. But, I live in a suburb which is lovely, but just a few kilometers down the road, there's terrible crime that people are experiencing. And you go, really, is this the best way to spend our money? Is this energy pursued when there's a gang shooting or a child is caught in the crossfire in the Cape Flats? And I don't think it is. So as you pointed on in my video, I thought, well, wow, this is quite interesting that this is what they chose to put their resources on.
What happens next? I mean, in terms of what you've been told.
So, I was unable to talk about the case for quite a while whilst it was still active. My legal advice said wait until there has been, we hope for it to be dismissed and for the prosecutor to say, I'm not going to pursue this. So we got that news about 10 days, 2 weeks ago. It was a verbal or WhatsApp message to say they won't be pursuing the investigation and they won't be prosecuting. So from here, what we can do, I think the main thing is to bring this up into the public eye, because I really do believe that political figures, public figures, and just the general public who pay for all of this can exert pressure to get people like Senzo Mchunu, him and, in my opinion, the rot that this represents, out of positions of power. I believe there will be the Matlanga Commission.
Mm-hmm.
And furthermore, my lawyers have said that we might take legal actions in our own hands. But what I think would be a result would be for Mchunu to be expelled from his position. And I don't know if we need to have a 6-month commission of inquiry when we have all the facts before us.
But you're not saying he should be expelled from his position because of his dealings with yourself. You mean in terms of the general allegations against him anyway. That's another conversation, yeah?
Yeah, well, look, I just think, to be honest, it's a huge abuse of power for the Minister of Police to set crimes against the state against a comedian. So I personally believe that alone is grounds for him to be expelled from his position.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we've got a question from Imsutwana from the Eastern Cape saying, Ashraf, please ask if he's been asked or compelled to take down all his posts, current and previous, from his socials. I would gather you're going to say no, because, I mean, the prosecution, as you've mentioned, they've said no case to pursue, right?
That's correct. And whilst we were waiting to see what would happen with the prosecution, we were going, just don't touch anything, don't make any statements. Anything you can say can be used against you. You know that old sort of saying. So we just didn't do anything, didn't respond. And as soon as the prosecution said we're not going to pursue it, then we thought, okay. So I haven't been tempted. Look, I must be honest. I don't believe that there's merit in the case. And so I'm not feeling particularly scared, and I never was. As soon as it was scary for me when I didn't know why the Hawks was at my house. But as soon as I knew, I wasn't worried.
Okay. Just the last thing is, I mean, as somebody who, like myself, who understands the importance of, personal brand building and being in the right places where you want to be, right? Isn't this exactly what has happened to you? Is exactly what a satirist dreams of, that he effectively is counter-targeted by somebody high-profile enough who, in inverted commas, may seem sort of silly enough to do just that. And that gives you even greater currency. I mean, example, I did not follow you at all before in terms of your work, and I'm certainly going to do so now. And I think many may be doing the same thing. So in terms of growing your brand, it's just so much more bigger now than where it was, just yesterday.
Yes, well, I mean, firstly, thank you for your kind words. I must say, look, it's not something over the past few years. I haven't sought out to antagonize people. But yes, you try and make people think. And I do think that, they call it the Barbara Streisand effect, where you try and suppress something and it becomes a bigger story. So I think Senzo Mchunu has, what he's done by trying to take action against me, has amplified this effect. So for me, as a satirist, as someone who tries to make people think, of course, it's exposing me to a whole new audience. And although it wasn't my aim, it is a very suitable outcome for me. And I get to be on the station and chat to you.
Of course, and I will follow you. Anton Taylor, it's an interesting one indeed. Anton Taylor, actor, comedian, and now home being, raided by the Hawks, and certainly now known around the country, certainly on the National Pulse. Much appreciate your time. Thanks for connecting with us here on the National Pulse.
Get ready, South Africa! 12,000 athletes from every corner of the country will hit the ground running in the 5th edition of the Hollywood Bets Durban 10 Kilometer. A thrilling road race starting and finishing at Hollywood Bets Kingsmead Stadium. It's more than a race. It's all about community, good vibes, and rising to the challenge. Catch the action live on Saturday, 30th of August at 7 a.m. on SABC2, SABC Plus, and across SABC radio stations. Hashtag Let's Run and feel the energy. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The landowners of the following properties are called upon to file notices of appearance with the Land Court within 30 working days from the date of publication via television, newspapers, email, and WhatsApp. Portions 147, 184, 303, 122, 167, and 174 of the farm Broederstroom 481 JQ. Portions 62 and 36 of the farm Leuvenkloof 480 JQ. Portion 34 of the farm Wilgegand 491 JQ. Failure to file a notice of appearance or notice to participate within the prescribed period may result in court orders granted in your absence. Inquiries: Registrar of the Land Court 010-493-5392 or Office of the Regional Land Claims Commissioner, Northwest Province 082-947-7106. Alternatively 064-009-2467.
Think about 6 years ago when Amapiano was just a musical instrument. When streaming meant watching water flow, not videos online. And remote work was only said when your remote batteries died. So it makes you wonder, what will the next 6 years bring? Ohino trucks now come standard with a 6-year drivetrain warranty, covering everything from pistons to gears. So although a lot can change in 6 years, our warranty promise won't. T's and C's apply. Hino, all the way.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
All right, so let's now move on to I'll tell you what, a welcome reaction from that. And we have a podcast of that conversation, as in fact we've got of every other conversation that we've had on the show so far today. Go to safm.co.za, right? Now, let's talk about Interpol. So we've been talking about Interpol, the International Criminal Police Organization's conference in Cape Town. It ends today. It's been on for 3 days. Police officials from Africa and then partner nations outside this continent have been discussing ways to tackle transnational organized crime. So we picked a clip from the SAPS Commissioner General Fani Masavola, and this is his reflections.
Thereof, we have also looked into various forms of financial flows, money laundering, in and into out of countries, cyber fraud, tax evasion, and that includes quite a number of billions every year that money is symphoning out of Africa. The challenge on the rise of the illicit pharmaceuticals, which not only is a crime against violation of regulations of nationalities and policies, but also toxic and a crime against humanity. We need to stand together as law enforcement from here on. Let's stand together and fight this scourge of crime across the globe, across Africa, and continuously share intelligence, not only with your next door neighbor, but let's share intelligence with one another so that we can be able to fight this scourge of crime. Legal firearms have become a problem, and these firearms, of course, they are manufactured across the globe, and they are transshipped also across internationally, and they are a tool to commit crime, and it is firearms that leave families stranded, distraught, and accompanied by the scourge of drugs that is also being transshipped across the globe. Together we can ensure a safe and more secure and more prosperous Africa, I hope, that in between these 3 days you enjoyed the mother city, Cape Town, in the Republic of South Africa. I hope you'll come back for holiday now that you know where Cape Town is. Normally people know that Cape Town is just another small city next to Johannesburg. No, it's 2,000 kilometers away. So you have seen it. Come back again for holiday and enjoy the rest of it. The weather has been behaving. And of course, this afternoon, enjoy yourself as we'll be going out on some excursions and go back and sell our country to your country where you will be going. And with those words, I'd like to thank you very much for coming to visit us. And I'm saying, Hambagahle. Thank you very much.
Hambagahle, go well. Really, that's the message from Fani Masemola, right, to the leaders of many countries in issues of security who have been part of the Interpol conference in Cape Town, right? Okay, there's comments from you. Let's pick up on that and on some of the issues we've spoken about. What about the files or the dockets being returned to KZN? You may want to pick up on that. You may want to pick up on the conversation with the satirist Anton Taylor and many other things. Here's one.
Good afternoon, Mr. Ashraf. This is Mbongo Sundisa. Mr. Ashraf, tell me, sir, why there are so many toll gates from Johannesburg to Limpopo, like Mokopane, Polokwane, there's about 4 or 5, and then to Durban also, but to Cape Town, there's only one. And imagine from like Joburg to Limpopo is only 3 to 4 hours. Then from Eastern Cape to Cape Town, it's about 12 to 13 hours, but there's only one toll gate. Why is that? Can you just find out from the Minister of Transport or Sanral? Thanks, Mr. Ashraf. Enjoy your weekend. Bye,
okay, just don't call me Mr. Just Ashraf, because I'm going to call you by your first name, so let's be equal on that issue. As far as the toll gates are concerned, I don't know. I mean, that surprised me. And you know, whether these are governed under national or provincial, that could well play a part. Remember the Gauteng internal toll gates for the city? That was a big uproar around the province of Gauteng, right? So I don't know. But of course, the obvious one is the more toll gates you get, the more money you collect, isn't it? Certainly to develop the roads, and whether we agree with it or not, that's what we do. But if we know more, I'll try and get Keys and Temba just to see if we can get a response on that as well next week.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. On the issue of the political killings task team, I just want to understand, why are the deaths of politicians prioritized over the death of any other citizen? Why should there be a special task team purely designed to investigate political killings? I think it's unfair. Look what is happening in the Western Cape. If this task team is so efficient, why are they not deployed in the Western Cape to go and deal with the issue of gangs there, to protect the deaths of innocent people, including children, instead of focusing solely on the deaths of politicians? I don't think this money is being utilized properly, because these people, policemen, are taken all over from the country. They are based there. They get paid accommodation. They get paid overtime for working away from home. I don't think we are spending this money wisely.
But I mean,
Mzi from the Free State. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Mzi. I hear what you're saying. Listen, crime is crime, and you know, all of that must be investigated, and you want to have the resources to do just that. But I think, and this is just for me on the outside, the fact that it is to do with politician or political assassinations and people being knocked off, I mean, that is a particularly worrisome type of crime, and maybe that's where the reason is to say we need to ring fence that. Personally, I'm in support of it, actually. The next question is, what do we do about it? 4:30, here's the news headlines with Ondela.
Thank you, Ashraf. On the news headlines, National Police Commissioner General Fani Masemola says illegal firearms remain a huge concern across the world. He was speaking at the 27th Interpol Regional Conference in Cape Town, which wrapped up today. The Gauteng MEC for Transport, Kitibone Diale-Tlabela, says a settlement has been reached with the taxi industry in the city of Ekurhuleni, bringing the 2-day strike to an end. And Britain has barred Israeli government and military officials from attending a major arms exhibition in London next month. A flood update follows at the top of the hour with Greg Hoos.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the N1 northbound in Midrand, a crash after Olifantsfontein Road. On the N1 southbound in Sunninghill, a crash at Rivonia Road, and on the R21 southbound in Tembisa, a fatal crash reported after Olifantsfontein Road. In KZN, on the N2 southbound in Isipingo, queuing traffic reported towards Joyner Road. The N3 is queuing on the link to the N2 north at Spaghetti Junction, and the N3 southbound in Pietermaritzburg, a stationary truck reported near New England Road. In Cape Town, on the N2 outbound, a crash before Mew Road, on the N1 outbound, a crash before Marine Drive, and on the N7 northbound, a crash before Plattekloof Road. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapele.
In your sports this hour, starting off with rugby, an excited Springbok team is getting down to the hard graft ahead of what assistant coach Tony Brown called the biggest game since the 2023 World Cup final. Now, the Boks meet the All Blacks in a massive test at Eden Park, a venue where the Boks haven't won since 1937 and where the All Blacks are unbeaten since 1994. Add to the Boks, they are on 4 straight wins against the biggest rivals, and it is likely to be Ardie Savea's 100th test match, and the stakes couldn't be higher. Now, the Boks beat the All Blacks twice in South Africa last season on their way to the Rugby Championship title, and edged the World Cup final 12-11 in 2023. All these factors point to a classic game that is widely viewed as the biggest of the year for the Springboks. Then in football, Golden Arrows will be looking to end Kaizer Chiefs' unbeaten start to the Betway Premiership when they host the Soweto Giants at the Moses Mabhida Stadium tomorrow evening at 5:30. Abafana Bafana are enjoying a 3-match unbeaten run, having secured a come-from-behind 2-1 win over Magezi FC at home on the 27th of August, and it was their second win of the season. Therefore, Arrows are currently occupying 5th spot in the Betway Premiership standings, 3 points behind Chiefs and leaders Kukuna United with 4 matches played this term. Chiefs, on the other hand, saw off their perfect start to the season, came to an end when they drew goalless with Mamelodi Sundowns at home on the 27th of August, but they remain unbeaten, having won their first 3 games. Elsewhere, Spain has named Rodri and Dani Carvajal in their squad for the upcoming World Cup 2026 qualifiers against Bulgaria and Turkey. Now, both players have returned to action for their clubs at the Club World Cup after being absent with long-term knee injuries. Spain visit Bulgaria on the 4th of September in their Group E opener before traveling to Turkey on the 7th of September. Then in athletics, veteran South African long-distance runner Stephen Mokoka says that the reason he keeps returning to the Cape Town Marathon is because of the attractive deal offered by the race organizers. Now, Mokoka is the most successful South African in the 42.2-kilometer event, having won it 3 times. The eagerly anticipated marathon with a prize money of 250,000 rands will take place on the 19th of October, and Mokoka once again lines up as the favorite. Then in tennis, number 14 seed Tommy Paul battled past Nuno Borges in a 5-set thriller to book his place in the 3rd round of the US Open today. Paul needed nearly 4.5 hours to put away Borges 7-6, 6-3, 5-7, 5-7 and 7-5 early Friday morning after winning the first 2 sets and losing the next 2. The match ended at 1:46 a.m. and Paul next faces Alexandra Bublik for a place in the 4th round. Then finally in motorsport, McLaren's Lando Norris set the place in the first practice of the Dutch Grand Prix. This is ahead of teammate Oscar Piastri. and Aston Martin's Lance Stroll. The British driver set a blistering 1 minute 10.278 seconds to beat Piastri by 0.292 seconds, with the McLaren duo a long way ahead of the field on Formula One's return. Home hero Max Verstappen was sixth and nearly 1 second behind Norris, then beat his Red Bull in the gravel after the checkered flag. With that said, it is a wrap from my side for now. I'll have more in the next hour.
The green and gold of Mzansi Africa and the green and white of Nigeria have a massive rivalry in search of victory. Bafana Bafana tackles the Super Eagles. The South clashes with the West. This is the FIFA World Cup African qualifier. South Africa versus Nigeria on Tuesday, 9 September at 5:30 p.m. Live on SABC Plus and SABC2. Also available on SABC radio stations at 6 p.m. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
James, congrats on the babies.
Yeah, thanks. It's a wild ride.
You're a new dad, 2 babies, 0 sleep, and 1 car that apparently couldn't cope.
Yeah, the hatchback was my baby, but it just didn't have enough space for my 2 new babies.
And are you happy with the price when you sold to WeBuy Cars?
Very. We've even got some extra cash to splurge on one of those fancy brands that you basically need a license for.
Good luck, James. WeBuy Cars. Geared for family, geared for you.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Let's get to those numbers for the last time this week with Paswane Mpatlele, Senior Accounts Manager at Markway Fund Managers. If you've got news locally and globally, Paswane, where do you want to start?
Yeah, let's start with some local activity. It's the end of August, as we are trading month of August, and the market sentiment is still positive. As the fear around investor sentiment is stable. We're looking at a VIX that are sitting at lows, supported generally by the economic data that is coming up, remains positive. We've got the rate cuts that are still expected to come through. We're looking at positive data here locally today. We saw some private sector credit expanding as banks give to consumers and businesses, up 5.8 year on year, up 0.2 month on month, healthy levels. Corporate is taking up much of the demand as they expand their balance sheet, supporting their operational activities, as we've seen rate cuts have been filtering through on local market. Meanwhile, households are still remaining fragile. They're not signaling a lot of confidence, as we can see with the expected GDP numbers still below 1%, focusing as consumers on cars and credits and credit cards. In the US, we've seen household spending has picked up, aligning with market expectations. We've seen the key PCE inflation data that the Fed looks at rose, and it spoke to some investor sentiment, as inflation comes across as still stubborn, and has the ability to now cloud the future rate cuts going forward in the next quarter. Another concern is the political pressure that Trump is still pushing around the Fed as he tries to fire a Fed governor, and this keeps investors worried about credibility of the Fed in the future, especially the last time when you consider the political pressure coming into the Fed. When the time of Nixon, we saw in the 70s, we saw the high inflation running up, stock markets and later on dropped significantly, and we've seen some of the sentiment is reflected in the US indexes, as we've seen the Nasdaq is down 1%, S&P is down 0.6, Dow is down 0.4. In Europe, they're pressured with the yields having to rise and concern on inflation. DAX CAC is down 0.5. Locally, we're sitting flat. Monthly, we're opening over 3% gains. Pressured today by our financials, just putting us down 0.9. But our resource sector is doing us well, up 0.7. Industrials are flat. Coming into that commodities, we see the likes of gold prices up 0.5, very supportive of South African economy at $3,435 an ounce, keeping the bullish momentum. Oil is sitting flat at $67.50 a barrel, still weak. Bitcoin is bearish at 108, down 3%. And we close down with those currencies. Rand against the dollar is at 17.67, Rand against the euro 20.62, and Rand against the pound 23.81.
Right, that's where we leave it. Appreciate your time. And you have a great weekend, Paswane. We will connect on Monday, as I suppose we collect the information in the markets locally and globally. Right, we're going to get to hear from you next.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Okay, let's just get to some of your WhatsApp comments. And there's been a range of thoughts from people speaking about a range of issues, right? So one is about apartheid.
Hi, Ashraf. There's a caller who said yesterday the apartheid government was better than the current government. It's what the listener said entirely wrong. Let's look at this country ever since ANC took over. There's no law in this country. During the apartheid era, there was law and order. Unemployment, now the unemployment has skyrocketed. Things are not working accordingly under this current government. So when we engage these issues, let's engage these issues looking at those things.
Well, you know what? I mean, I know the call. Just to be fair, I don't think he actually used the word apartheid, just so that you know that. I don't think he said that at all. And if anybody heard it differently, we can replay that. He did not use the word apartheid. Yes, he did say that you see when, and I'm paraphrasing, when white people run the country, like, things are much better. That he did say. And yes, there was a huge response about that.
Hi, Ashraf. That sounds like an hilarious, fun adventure. The police minister saying the Hawks after you for being a satirist, pretending to be a criminal. I wonder if I pretend to be a human-sized HIV viron. Would the health minister, Dr. Motsoaledi, send doctors out to come and catch me?
Tell you what, Dr. Motsoaledi listens to the show often. My gut feeling, knowing him, no. Okay.
Ashraf, good afternoon. It's Tumso from Waterford in KZN. The issue of the raid on Anton Taylor's home, that action itself, it was a frivolous action. According to jurisprudence. Further from that, the NPA has already said we're not prosecuting because there's no reasonable prospect of a success. So basically, thank you, Hawks. You've proved Mkhwanazi right. So can we have more of this, please? Thank you.
Well, you see, that's really the issue. It's not even now who said what anymore. I mean, from the first line, Anton Taylor effectively was very upfront. He was talking nonsense because he spoke about himself as a criminal, right? But it's again, using the resources, state resources like the Hawks to try and pursue you being personally, irritated, embarrassed by a video like that. Yeah, that's it. So maybe more to come.
Hi, Ashraf. Mr. Mkhunu abused his power as police minister to try and intimidate Mr. Taylor. Mr. Mkhunu should be fired for this action alone. Jaco KZN.
Well, you're telling a person who's been suspended to be fired, or, Sure, man. This is where we live in the country. By the way, we're going to have, thanks for all that. We'll take more calls as well from you if you have any thoughts on issues you want to raise. We'll chat to Imbali Ntuli after 5 o'clock. Remember, she's the, former DA member, but now the CEO of Groundwork Collective. And we're going to chat to her for about 45, 50 minutes as part of the Friday Fireside Chat. I'm so looking forward to it because she's really one of the young South Africans who are very positioned to shift the narrative of our country. And for that to happen, you need people like her in leadership positions, whether it's in Parliament or out. Well, that debate we can have. But that's what's going to come up after 5 o'clock.
X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Well, we had the People's Poet earlier on. So what about the People's Budget? Well, the People's Budget certainly something that's been put forward by the Nelson Mandela Bay Municipality. To talk us through what the plans have been around that, we have Councillor Khaya Gnisha, who is the MMC for Budget and Treasury in that region. Appreciate your time, Councillor MMC. Much appreciate you connecting with us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
to
So,
your listeners as well.
so let's talk about this. I mean, I would think every budget would always be for the people. That's the purpose of a budget, to try and, use the monies that are in, state or local municipality coffers and distribute them effectively. What makes this different?
Well, thank you very much for that question. Basically, the journey to developing this people's budget began with a thorough and inclusive integrated development plan process, which is what is known as the IDP process, which is also a legal requirement, but also a fundamental democratic tool that we use. So we conducted extensive public participation, engaging residents, civil society, businesses, and other sectors across all of our 60 wards in the metro. So this included ward-based planning, where we listened to the needs of our people and their priorities of each community, by the way, directly. So every submission was considered, which then shaped the final IDP and budget. So it was not just a consultation for the sake of consultation. It was meaningful engagement that directly influenced how we allocated resources to our people. That's why we are confident in calling this a people's budget.
Okay, let's talk about the amount. I understand it's 20 billion rands. Tell us how it's been, spread out, disseminated.
Yes. So for this financial year, which is the 2025-26 financial year, it's exactly 21.61 billion. That's the budget that we've been given by National. So this is an all-funded budget, which means all of the money that we are getting, we're committing to spend, is backed by real income. So whether from government grants, service charges, or other revenue sources. Then how it is broken down, you've got 15 billion, which is set aside for your operational expenditure. So this includes things like your salaries of municipal workers, maintenance of infrastructure, refuse collection, electricity, water service, and so on and on. Then you have 3 billion, which is allocated for capital expenditure. This is for building and upgrading infrastructure like your roads, water pipes, housing, electricity in substations, etc., etc. The rest is then reserved for paying debt and maintaining financial stability in the metro. So this shows that you are committed to ensuring that every cent is spent, that we spend brings real value to our residents, and we've broken down like that.
Okay, and let's then talk about this public consultation program that you refer to, the IDP, right? And how did that play out in terms of identifying priority areas and then giving a sense to the people that actually they are being listened to?
Yes, well, the IDP consultations were very revealing. And as you can imagine, it would be because we go directly to our people. So across all sectors and wards, certain things came up consistently. The key priority areas for this financial year that were noted and were raised in almost all the wards was water security and infrastructure was one of the priorities. Roads and stormwater maintenance was one of the priorities. Electricity upgrade, especially in the informal settlements, was a priority. The building and developing of houses to address the lack of housing within the informal settlements was a priority. And the waste management and cleaning services, which result in sewer pipes bursting and causing a lot of unhealthy situations within our communities, was also a priority. So these are the main issues that were continuously being raised by our people, and we want to say to them that we heard the voices of our community clearly. And this budget, I can assure you that it is geared towards responding to those concerns directly.
Mm-hmm. I'm very interested about the issue of whether, budgets, and people often have complained about it, whether budget allocations have been correct or incorrectly done, and therefore there's been an issue of under expenditure, which actually means it's compromised on service delivery. I want to pick your brain on that right after this.
SPAR brings you 3 days of even more from 29 to 31 August. Get 500-gram Clover Butro, buy 2 for 150, save 40 Rand. Or 2-liter Coca-Cola, Fanta, Sprite or Stony Light and Zero Range. Any 2 for 24, save 14 Rand. It's 3 days of even more. 29 to 31 August, only at SPAR. While stocks last.
your favorite socks. Pink and orange stripes. They're blue with yellow dots.
Green, and they kind of look like snakes.
The ones that make children smile.
On 19 September, wear your favorite socks and help spread smiles to children in need of a life-changing surgery. Get your Socks for Smile sticker today at smilefoundation.co.za. This is an SABC-supported initiative.
Catch SAFM live on Thursday, 18 September at the TBCSA Tourism Leadership Conference. Conversations shaping the future of tourism. Brought to you by the TBCSA, the leading voice of tourism in South Africa. Ashraf Garda on the National Pulse.
Well, let's conclude our conversation around the budget, or the people's budget, from the Nelson Mandela Bay Municipality. My guest is the Councillor Khaya Nxisha, as we look at just what some of the issues that's come through there. So, Councillor, I made the point, MMC, in fact, that in the past there's been, criticism that the budget allocations have been wrong, and therefore they not only have been wrongly allocated, therefore there's been an under-expenditure in some parts and a shortage in other parts. I mean, what have you done, therefore, to address that, to make sure that this budget will work?
Thank you. Well, since we've entered into a government, specifically since I've occupied office as an NMC under Budget and Treasury, we are now fully aware of the past challenges and are basically committed as well to doing things differently. So firstly, we've strengthened project planning and implementation systems within the municipality. This now will assist in ensuring that all departments are ready to spend from day one of the financial year, unlike before. Secondly, we've improved our procurement process to speed up service delivery while maintaining transparency, because we felt that that is very key. We've got nothing to hide. And thirdly, we've introduced strict monitoring and evaluations mechanisms. So each department is accountable for delivery targets and budget spending. Now, lastly, we are saying that we are focusing on partnerships with communities and also the private sector players to fast-track our projects. The magnitude of work is indeed big, we know, but we are better prepared for it, and we are more focused and determined to deliver what we need to deliver to our people. So gone are the days where we're going to accept mediocre answers from our officials. Things must be done correctly, because we've removed all the things that were blocking the process of spending on time.
Let's talk about what is called ward-based budgets. I'm fascinated by that.
No, ward-based budget is self-explanatory. Remember, we've got 60 wards, and each ward has basically got its needs, so you can't treat them all the same. So ward-based budgeting process is one of the most exciting developments this year that we've had to undergo. So instead of looking at a citywide of priorities, we zoomed into each ward specifically to understand the specific needs of those communities. So ward councillors, ward committees, and residents themselves were involved in identifying priority projects. So whether it's fixing a road in a particular street, building a community hall, upgrading a clinic, or increasing street light in a particular area that is prone to crime. So this means that each ward has its own tailored budget basically allocated to it, making service delivery more target and responsive as well. So this also improves accountability, as you can imagine, because residents can now track progress on the projects they themselves propose. So this approach puts power back in the hands of our people where it belongs.
Okay, talking about power, let's end with that, right? Of course, yourself and other councillors, and of course the mayor has got the power to make important decisions that impacts on your entire constituency, right? Tell us how you'll ensure that you won't have, wasteful expenditure, unauthorized expenditure, which, as you know, is the scourge of South Africa right now.
Yes, very important question, because our metro actually has got one of the highest amount of unauthorized irregular expenditure. It's about 20 billion plus, and it's not going down. And this is indicative of officials doing things incorrectly, and we've got a responsibility as politicians to involve ourselves where things are being done correctly. So as leaders, this is troubling us a lot. We have set terms and conditions which we have given to the acting city manager, Mr. Ted Pillay, to ensure that all employees adhere to them. And these conditions include demands that a person that is found to be involved with doing things wrong will face disciplinary action according to the law. So the time has passed for public funds to be misused. We are going to take action, and we are going to be very vigilant, and we are going to watch each and every cent of public funds to ensure that it is spent correctly, because it is criminal to return money back to national when we've been given money. It means we are not assisting our people, and it means there will be a lack of service delivery.
Okay, just before I let you go, and there's a comment from a listener saying, please clarify what percentage did you say of the total budget will go to salaries?
The total budget that is going to salaries, that is the operational budget, it's 15 billion, but it's not entirely 15 billion. Remember, I said that it is broken down into the salaries of municipal workers and maintenance as well of our infrastructure, but the majority of the 15 billion goes to the paying of salaries of employees of the municipality.
So I mean, that figure, I think you gave about 75, well, you're back to saying 75%. I mean, that's what you're saying, 75% salaries and maintenance combined, but the majority of that is salaries. So that's quite high. Okay, thank you for your time. Much appreciate you connecting with us here on the National Pulse, reflecting on the people's budget. From the Eastern Cape, the Nelson Mandela Bay Municipality Councillor Khaya Ncisha. Thank you for your time.
You're listening to the National Pulse.
Right, so of course your question about the salaries, you got the answer there on that one. There's more, and let me find them. Here's one.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Ashraf, it's Mono in Cape Town. Ashraf, there is something that fascinating about you, the media of South Africa, and the politicians, especially the black politicians, and even the law enforcement, the judiciary that said that the apartheid regime was crime against humanity. My question is, in the apartheid regime, there was no family that went to bed hungry. Today, we've got millions of families going to bed hungry without food while the politicians are eating their money. Isn't that crime against humanity? I mean, there are more than 100 murders a day in South Africa. Isn't that crime against humanity? What is crime against humanity? Can you please answer me, guys, especially the media of South Africa? Thank you so much.
Okay, what is crime against humanity? So, I mean, I hear what you're saying. Well, I'll leave it open to other people. What is the understanding of the apartheid era crime against humanity versus what you're saying? If people go hungry and people are killed, is that not crime against humanity? Thank you for that. We'll chat to Mbali and Tuli coming up after 5 o'clock. So pretty shortly, I'll try to get another few comments through.
Hi, Ashraf. Professor Chachila, who is a Minister for Police. We have got a sense from Kunu, who is a Minister of Police from suspension. But all those people, they are getting full paid salary or wages with a benefit. But the crime is increasing here in South Africa without any actions. He's silent, Professor Chachila. We don't know what he's doing. My name is Les.
I don't know. I mean, look, to be very fair, I think even businesses, it's very difficult to suspend a person when they're not yet found guilty. So you suspend them pending an investigation. And until they're not convicted or found guilty, you can't then effectively remove salaries and things like that, because I think there'll be a counter argument against it, and a very compelling argument that they would be wrong.
Afternoon, Ashraf. This is Glen Mose from Ironside in the Val. I just wonder if that previous caller was really saying that apartheid was much better than this democracy. Where was he? And even, did he have, or did we have this right to call this national radio and free our souls and our comments during that apartheid? Really? Where was he? I think he's really, I think he's maybe 2000. He's one of those 2000. Those who were born much later. I thank you.
Okay, I thank you too. It's we're going to chat. We're going to go into fireside chat mode. But first things first. Here's Greg Host with the news at 5.
Thank you, Ashraf. In this news update, concern over illegal firearms and Israeli government officials barred from UK arms exhibition. Good day to you. The National Police Commissioner, Fani Masemola, says illegal firearms remain a huge concern across the world. He was speaking at the Interpol Regional Conference in Cape Town, which wrapped up today. Illegal firearms, he says, have become a problem, and these firearms are manufactured across the globe and then transshipped across internationally. He says they're a tool to commit crime, and it's these firearms that leave families stranded, distraught, and accompanied by the scourge of drugs that have been transshipped across the globe. The Gauteng Transport MEC, Kerebone Dliabiklabela, says a settlement has been reached with the taxi industry in the city of Ekurhuleni, bringing the two-day strike to an end. Commuters in Katlehong, Tembisa and Germiston, east of Johannesburg, were left stranded due to a taxi strike organised by National Taxi Council Sintaco. The strike was a response to the Transport Department officials impounding 17 of its taxis for various offences. The SACP says limited funds will not deter it from contesting the 2026 local government elections. The party's General Secretary, Sali Mapaila, says they'll rely on grassroots support to ensure the success of their campaign. He spoke to the media on the sidelines of the party's Central Committee plenary in Johannesburg. The Northern Cape High Court has sentenced 2 men to a combined 35 years in prison for dousing a 14-year-old teenage boy with paraffin. They forcibly took the boy from his home, tied a rope around his neck, and burnt him alive after accusing him of stealing their dacha. The NPA's Mochelefa Senekwitsani says Elvin Bungani Sekepe was handed 25 years in prison, while 21-year-old Christopher Thomas Labitsa received 10 years for their roles in the setting of the teenage boy alight after accusing him of stealing. The NPA in the Northern Cape has strongly condemned this barbaric crime and hopes the family will have some comfort from this ruling. The eThekwini Metro Police say roads around Durban's Moses Mabhida Stadium will be closed tomorrow for the Betway Premiership match between Golden Arrows and Kaizer Chiefs. Smiso Kwanyana Road will be closed between Battery Beach and the Sandile Tusi on-ramp. The Metro Police says paid parking will be available at Badminton Hall in Umgeni Road, People's Park Eastfield, and of course at Suncoast Casino. The UK's barred Israeli government and military officials from attending a major arms exhibition in London next month. It says Israel's escalating military operation in Gaza is wrong. The BBC's Yolande Nell reports that it was the Ministry of Defence which previously prominently represented at the arms show, which takes place in London every other year. However, it's understood that this year it's not been invited to join, although Israeli arms companies will be able to take part in the exhibition. In a statement, the Israeli Defence Ministry said the new restrictions amounted to a deliberate and regrettable act of discrimination, and that the decision by Britain plays into the hands of extremists. The top story at 5 o'clock, the National Police Commissioner says illegal firearms remain a huge concern across the globe. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Hoos.
After a 1-0 loss against Arsenal in the opening match of the new season, the Red Devils are searching for a win at Old Trafford.
Mason Mount! Oh, what a finish from Mason Mount! Curls it home 2-1.
However, the Clarets are gunning for a crucial 3 points away from home.
Just from Brownlow! We're all square! What a goal from Burnley!
This is the Premier League. Experience Manchester United versus Burnley FC on Saturday 30 August at 3:30 p.m. Live on SABC3 and SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game!
SAFM celebrates its 89th birthday this month by giving listeners an exclusive opportunity to attend the prestigious Joy of Jazz taking place at the Sandton Convention Centre from the 26th to the 28th of September 2025. To stand a chance to win these sought-after tickets, simply SMS SAFM 89 followed by your name to 41391 and stay tuned to SAFM as we could be calling you. SAFM is the official media partner for the Dipala stage at the Standard Bank Joy of Jazz. Entries open from the 7th of August and close on the 31st of August 2025. Winners will be randomly selected and called from the 1st of September 2025. SMSs are charged at R1.50 per SMS. Free SMSs and SMS bundles do not apply. T's and C's apply. Gender-based violence is destroying lives and tearing communities apart. It happens in homes, in schools, at workplaces, and too often in silence. But it doesn't have to continue. If you see it, speak out. If you are hurting, reach out. Because doing nothing is not an option. Listen to all 19 SABC radio stations from Wednesday the 23rd of July for hard talk, discussions, advice, dramas, educational shows and interviews around GBV with experts, survivors, lawmakers and a whole country affected by gender-based violence. All on your favorite SABC radio station. Call 0800 428 428 to report abuse or get help. GBV, it ends with you. This message is brought to you by the SABC.
In sports this hour, Springboks all set for New Zealand and Lando Norris sets the pace for Dutch Grand Prix. More details at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M2 westbound in central Johannesburg has a crash on the link to the M1 north at Crown Interchange. The N14 southbound in Centurion, a crash after Ufius Road, and on the R21 southbound in Tembisa, a fatal crash after Olifantsfontein Road, causing some serious delays. In KZN, the N2 northbound has a crash after Spaghetti Junction. All lanes are open. The M4 northbound slow moving through Umhlanga, and the N3 is queuing on the link to the N12 North at Spaghetti Junction. In Cape Town, the N1 Service Road outbound has heavy traffic towards the N7 highway exit, the N3 southbound queuing towards the N2 highway, and the N7 checks Hadwell Drive southbound queuing towards the N2 highway. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Right, you may have been following the story of a conversation that Dr. Mampela Rampela had on SABC News, and the whole debate between her and the presenter was on the issue of whether one can call what's happening in Gaza right now a genocide, or specifically a Holocaust, which is really what Dr. Rampele suggested, right? There's been an outcry around that issue with many people, wondering why the presenter had sort of defended the position that it can't be called a Holocaust. So the SABC now have issued a statement saying they're aware of the matter relating to the conduct of one of its news presenters. I'm reading aloud, okay? In an interview conducted with Dr. Rampele, as such, the SABC News management took immediate action in line with the SABC's internal policies, and the presenter in question is currently not scheduled. The SABC is enjoined by various legislation framework that enforces compliances to adhering to the Broadcasting Act 4 of 1999 and its own editorial policies that ensure the offering of plurality of views and a variety of news and information. The SABC's editorial policies are aimed at building trust with the public and in ensuring that our content in all its formats continues to resonate with the prescripts of our public mandate, and more so in providing universal access to credible content. So let's just put that out there. So that's the development coming from SABC News. But of course, there's you. Now we're going to chat to Mbale Ntuli coming up pretty shortly as part of the Friday Fireside Chat. But before we get to her, here's some of your thoughts.
Afternoon, Ashraf. This is Mose from Ironside in the Val. I just wonder if that previous caller was really saying that apartheid was much better than this democracy. Where was he? And even, did he have, or did we have this right to call this national radio and free our souls and our comments during that apartheid? Really? Where was he? I think he's really? I think he's maybe 2000. He's one of those 2000. Those who were born much later. I thank you.
Hi, Ashraf. Sifiso here. Just my 2 cents worth as it relates to whether apartheid was better or not, because seemingly everybody thinks it's better. Then let's apply the same rules then. How many of us would be willing to apply the same rules that were applied apartheid? And let's just take away all of the rights and apply the very same rules. If you apply the very same rules, you get the very same results. That's the solution. So just give government carte blanche, do away with the constitution, and let them and allow the government, this current government, to do what the apartheid government did. Then we should get the same results. But how many of us are willing to go down that road?
Okay, well, big question. And you can reflect on that. But right now, it's time to get into fireside chat mode. So with me is Mbale Ntuli, who heads up the Grand Collective. And the Ground Collective is maybe a grand idea. Anyway, we'll find out how grand the Ground Collective is anyway as we continue chatting for the next 45 minutes or so. Now, as always, there's time for 1 or 2 calls, particularly because, it's a chat, really. It's not like we get in-depth in 1 or 2 conversations. We move into different places. But certainly, if you know Mbali personally, that's just a big heads up. You can certainly call in or send us a voice note as well. But if you don't and you just want to, comment about her and what you think about her, that's fine too, right? So, Mbali, good to connect with you. We've chatted so often during the build-up to the elections and post that, and there's been like a 6-month barren run, I think. So, good to talk to you now.
Good to be here. It's always nice to chat to you and your listeners.
Much appreciated, right? So, let me start with the Freudian slip of the Grand Collective as opposed to the Ground Collective, right? So how grand is the Ground Collective? Tell me more about it, because that's where you are now.
It is. So Ground Collective really was an initiative that I thought was important in South Africa, because obviously I'd been a politician for many years and a public representative. But one of the things that I found all the time across demographics, across race, across age, was that the average South African really just didn't understand how the state worked, and wasn't participating as much as they should have in a lot of the decision making that is really vested in us. And so people thought that, democracy is about voting and then, on election day, and that's just about it, without realizing actually how very fragile our democracy is if we don't participate. So the Ground Collective was really about encouraging more participation, more civic participation from people, and mainly also just telling them where they could find these particular places and giving them some practical steps. And even a few days ago, I was at Wits University with students that are in humanities, very smart people. And I asked them, how many of you registered? How many of you know your ward councillor? How many of you even know your SRC president? Or, CPFs? Very basic things. And even with people at that level, there weren't very many people in the room that understood. And so if you take that across South Africa, you can understand why we're in the situation we are, because people feel so powerless, because they don't really know actually what to do when they are angry at our politicians or the state.
But it's interesting you said that, because as you said, you spoke to people in the humanities and they would be switched on. You'd expect that more than anybody else. And if they don't know, what does it say about the rest of us? But why do you think that's the case? Is it because they are, they feel powerless? Or because they just haven't made the effort? I do find it strange, because you would think they would be the type of people agitating for change every single day. That's what they study for in the main.
I think political participation as a citizen is just not a behavior that we have in South Africa across, as I said, the board with everyone. And I think that's because after 94, people were euphoric about everything, and they gave up the idea that it had to be something that you constantly practice, being part of democracy, making decisions. And by the time we realized that we had outsourced so much of our power to political parties and politicians, it was difficult to get back into that mode. And I'm not even sure that civil society and doing all this work is going to be enough. I think it should be done in schools, quite frankly, right from younger ages all the way, where people really understand how the state works, and it becomes almost second nature. So you're not having to do it every time in between the elections. It has to be constant. So I don't blame people. There's also a lot of just stuff that is thrown at us as South African citizens that sometimes it's hard to discern what you need to know and what you don't. So we make it quite easy for people to find that information quite quickly and absorb what it is that they need and carry on. Because obviously not everyone's going to want to know everything about the state, but there are some crucial things that I think should be simply something that everyone can understand.
Well, you're certainly laying the groundwork for that. I mean, what's the reason why it's not in schools? It seems to be the most obvious thing for me.
I think our school system is under a lot of strain, as you well know, and I think that there's trepidation around putting in what is extra work at this moment. Although I would argue that everything is political anyway. I mean, obviously we're a non-partisan organization, but everything is political. And so I think we do a great disservice. But I think people were worried that there would be sort of political agendas that would come into it. But I think we can all agree now that without it, we've actually left our children to a great disservice. And I mean, I would encourage your listeners to ask their children what they know beyond, who the political parties are. Even simple things like, what does a minister do every day? What is a councillor meant to do? How is our budget drawn up as the country? Because these are the things that then politicians can lie to you about and say, if you vote for me, I'm going to make sure that everyone gets, a chicken in their pot and a car. But if you actually know how the system works and how the budget works, then you'd be able to really discern which ones were lying and which ones were giving you credible, maybe more boring and not sensational policies that want to put in, but that would actually be able to work. And so I think it just hasn't been in school because also we just have had leadership that has lacked the imagination, quite frankly.
So we'll move on to other things too, because there's so many other things I want to talk to you about, but just staying for the last with the groundwork collective, right? How then do you measure your success? I mean, you've set up this NPO to effectively, really work at ground level, at grassroots. How are you measuring that it's effective?
So there's a number of things that we do. Obviously, we have our digital registration portal, and we're able to track how many people are registering through us. And then they also go through to the civic education app that we have designed, Future Dates is designed, and that we hold on them, so that we're not just giving people education, we also then want them to apply it and see, how well they know it. And then we also do things like, once you know that, please come and actually physically do something with us, whether it's observers or volunteering, whatever the case might be. And you can track how many people are part of that. I mean, in our last observer mission, we had over 3,000 people at voting stations across the country. And similarly, we have programs where we are in communities and we keep track of who we're talking to, and they're all signed up onto our databases, so we can see who we are constantly. And we I think so far quite proud of the work that we've been doing. Obviously, we could do more, but as I said, one of the barriers is that many people don't think that our democracy is under any threat because they think, we have elections, so we're a good democracy.
Do you think differently?
I think that we are in a fragile democracy, and not because I necessarily think that we aren't going to have free or fair elections, but it's just because I don't think that that's the culmination of what democracy is. Democracy should also be about having empowered, informed citizens. It should be about being able to have proper participation when even things like bills come out for comment, and we don't really have that. And I think that any astute politician that's read, sort of some of the surveys that come out of Afrobarometer that say that 76% of people would give up elections if a leader would just give them a job and security, rings alarm bells, because it means that what I think might be, a democracy worth saving is one that has become abstract to most people, and they'd be quite frankly willing to give it up. That in itself means that we are quite fragile.
I think it's a good point. I mean, by and large, many people may think that, as you quite rightfully say, that, democracy is not the holy grail, but effectively a better life for all is the holy grail, because that's what they see. Does it change our lives for the better? And if it doesn't, then who really cares? But there's more to come as we continue chatting to Imbali Ntuli. I really want to get to her story about where it all started for her. We'll do that right after this.
This week on FC Meets, Tisetso and Bandile sit down with Mamelodi Sundowns ladies dribbling wizard Lehlohonolo Mashego. Find out about her rise to the top of women's football on the African continent and what motivates her to aim even higher. Tune in to SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 this Saturday, 30 August at 6 p.m. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus. FC Meets, football made for community by community. Rechencha Game, proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The Kwena Chamezi have one game plan, a win in their own backyard. However, Usutu have a different mission. They are not traveling to Limpopo on holiday. They are hunting for 3 points. This is the Betway Premiership. Catch Makesi FC versus Amazulu FC this Saturday, 30 August at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC 1 and SABC Plus. Then on SABC radio stations at 3 p.m. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The SAFM University Debate Challenge is back. The University of KwaZulu-Natal will take on the University of Zululand in what promises to be a nail-biting debate. Join us for the 1-hour debate on This Week Today with Oliver Dixon from 6 to 7 p.m. on Friday, the 5th of September 2025. The SAFM University Debate Challenge is an independent, non-partisan progressive initiative seeking to develop confident communicators, critical thinkers, and empowered global citizens. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Now listen, as we continue chatting to Imbali Ntuli, there's lots of people they can Google your entire story. In fact, they can do a ChatGPT bio of you, which is very, very simple. But what they can't do is get into your mind, right? Give me one word that you would use to describe you. Just one word. Describe your personality, your ethos.
Curious.
Curious. Yeah.
In all the connotations of it. I think some people think I'm a curious creature, but I'm also a curious person.
Okay, got that. Is there a quote, it could be your own quote or somebody else that you find yourself often using when in conversation to just emphasize something that's really profound?
I don't know about a conversation, but there's a quote that I think describes me very well. And it is that they tire of the quiet, those who have known the storm. And I think it describes me because when I don't have something to do or a goal or a mission, I'm not as energized as I am when I'm just kind of in the lull. And it's because I really enjoy getting stuff done. So I do. I tire of the quiet because I've known the storm.
I like that. Wow, the tire of the quiet. Those who know the storm. Absolutely. Let's talk about your early days. I know you're from KZN, and I somehow remember talking about this before, that your dad was in the taxi industry, which is very, very topical, as you would know, right? But yeah, tell me more. Tell me more about you and your family upbringing.
So yes, my father started the KZN Taxi Association. My mom was a teacher. I would say that I had a very interesting upbringing. We're very, traditionally Zulu in many ways, homesteads, slaughtering, scarification, all of that. But also moved into Durban North in 1993. So had sort of both those worlds, which I think was really fantastic of my parents to expose us to. And grew up in a somewhat more privileged experience than the average South African, but also very different in that the taxi industry is also quite violent. So you see a lot of interesting things like that. And of course, a big reason for my father going away was because of the 1996 taxi war. And though he didn't die of a bullet, he died as a result of it. And so at the age of 8, I lost my dad. And then had, members of our family trying to assassinate us for many years thereafter. And so, that kind of leaves a lot for you to think about. But I've had an incredible mom. So I can't complain for, all the sacrifices and things that she did to get us to where we were. But it also makes you, I think, quite tough. And after you've gone through all of that, very few things scare you. And so people would always ask me, aren't you scared of politics? Aren't you scared of this? And I mean, after you've had people shooting, into your bed, thinking that you're sleeping there, not so much. You're not going to be scared of a debate. So.
But interesting, I was reading, I mean, so sad about the loss of your dad at a very, very young age. I mean, for you, right? But I also read a note about your mum then saying that, of course, she had to look at the safety of yourself and your brother, and therefore you had to go to boarding school. And you made the point that that separation and that exposure to another world, effectively set you up really to where you are now, isn't it?
I mean, I think in parts, I've always been this person. I mean, when I was 7, I, took part in this competition that I'd kind of coerced my school into doing so that I could win the chance to give flowers to Queen Elizabeth, because we had been learning about what a queen does, and it was her first state visit to South Africa since we'd become a democracy. So it's hard to know nature and nurture which it was, but I've always felt this way for as long as I could remember. But certainly boarding school was, I think, in many ways fantastic for my brother and I. It makes you quickly independent. And I went to a fantastic boarding school where you learned how to fly fish. We played rugby, tennis, chess. We were outside a lot, trekking spur, going to dams, horse riding. And I don't know that you could get all of that in a day school to the level that we did. And certainly it opens your mind. You're exposed to a lot more things. And I loved it. I love learning. I loved school. So it was a fantastic time ran by a very wonderful liberal family in KZN called King's School. And every single person that I know from there, and many of us in our WhatsApp group, every single person that I know from there loved that school. There's not one person I've ever met that didn't like it, which is an incredible thing to be able to say.
Now, how often? I mean, we know you're part of the DA. You're not in formal party politics any longer, right? Will that change? I mean, how many people have been knocking on your door? Like, how many do you get? Or maybe how many WhatsApp messages do you get? You're not under oath. You're not in Parliament or something like that.
No, it's incredibly flattering. I do get a lot of offers from various political formations, including ones where I would have thought that they would have ideologically known that I'm not a good candidate for them, but I do. I've had lots of offers, and I also get interesting offers even from corporate and government. And there's sometimes where you think, should I, shouldn't I? But I'm dedicated to this mission for now. But I will say that I am somebody who feels that being a politician and a public representative, first and foremost, is what I feel most aligned with. And so as I watch sometimes the political theatre, play out around us, I often think, why are we letting these imbeciles be in charge? I mean, these people are delusional, but maybe that's the audacity that you need to take that on. And I think sometimes the best people in society overthink, should I do it? Should I not do it? Should I get in? Should I not? So I think we all are at that stage sometimes in South Africa.
And do you think they are the imbeciles, those who are leading us at this point in time?
The vast majority, I think, have intentions that don't align with where South Africa's future should be going and are fully aligned with their pockets in the main.
Okay, enough said on that one there. Just a quick one before we get to news time. How often are you still associated with the DA? Not in a negative or a positive, just by association?
Not very often, I don't think. I think a lot of people, obviously a lot of people still know that I was part of the DA, but it doesn't come up as often as it used to. So not that much. But I will say that people still recognize me a lot, which I'm always very surprised by. I suppose one never really knows sometimes the impact or the reach that they get. So I'm always fascinated, especially when it's people that you also really admire, that you look up to, or even if it's someone like who's, the petrol attendant or the cashier. All the time I get people still recognize me, especially in KZN as well. So it's nice to know that I did something that people at least remember, and nothing scandalous.
Well, you certainly made an impact. I'm going to put you on pause for now because we've got the news headlines, we've got sport, and we've got the markets. So you can just pause and breathe in and out, and we'll connect with you for the last 20 minutes or so of the show here on the National Pulse. Here's the news.
Let's take a quick look at the headlines. The National Police Commissioner says illegal firearms remain a huge concern across the world. Taxi Council Sintako says taxi operations in Ukuleleni, east of Johannesburg, have now resumed following a strike. And the UN Secretary General says he's appalled by the relentless attacks on North Darfur and Sudan by the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces. There's a full update, as always, at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon. Starting off in Gauteng, the M1 southbound queuing towards Crown Interchange due to a crash on the opposite carriageway. The N1 southbound in Roodepoort has a crash at Albertina Sisulu Road, and at Loftus Versfeld Stadium in Pretoria, heavy traffic on local routes around the stadium due to this evening's Scorpion Kings concert event. In KZN, the M4 northbound slow moving through Mhlanga, and on the N3, queuing traffic reported on the link to the N2 north at Spaghetti Junction. In Cape Town, the N7 northbound, stationary vehicle before Plattekloof Road, the M5 southbound slow moving towards Racecourse Road exit, and the N1 Service Road outbound has heavy traffic towards the N7 highway exit. With your traffic update, I'm Irma G.
This is SAFM Sports with Duming Khapele.
In your sports, the Sawa Swester Brain has named his Springbok women's side to face Italy in their second Rugby World Cup match. Utility back Nadine Roos will start at fullback and Unam Toes at scrum half for the Springbok women against Italy, while Kumisa Kawe and Loy Webb will make their first appearances at the Women's Rugby World Cup at York Community Stadium on Sunday. Then an excited Springbok team is getting down to the hard graft. This is ahead of what assistant coach Tony Brown called the biggest game since the 2023 World Cup final. Now the Boks meet the All Blacks in a massive test at Eden Park, a venue where the Boks haven't won since 1937 and where the All Blacks were unbeaten since 1994. Add to the Boks, they are on 4 straight wins against their biggest rivals, and it is likely to be RD Severe's 100th test match, and the stakes couldn't be higher. The Boks beat the All Blacks twice in South Africa last season on the way to the Rugby Championship title and edged the World Cup final 12-11 in 2023. All these factors point to a classic game that is widely viewed as the biggest of the year for the Springboks. Then in football, Golden Arrows will be looking to end Kaizer Chiefs' unbeaten start to the Betway Premiership when they host the Soweto Giants at the Moses Mabhida Stadium tomorrow evening at 5:30. Abafana Bastande are enjoying a 3-match unbeaten run, having secured a come-from-home behind 2-1 win over Magezi at home on the 27th of August, and it was their second win of the season. So, Arrows are occupying 5th spot in the Betway Premiership standings, 3 points behind Chiefs and leaders Kukuna United with 4 matches played this term. While we look at Chiefs, on the other hand, they saw their perfect start to the season coming to an end with a goalless draw against Sundowns, but they remain unbeaten, having won their 3 games. In athletics, reigning African Coach of the Year, Thabo Matibedi, says that his athletes, Bayanda Walaza, Sinesipho Dambile, and Give Leotlela, have funded his trip to Italy to assist them ahead of the World Championships, with the World Senior Champs scheduled for the 13th to the 21st of September in Tokyo. They want their coach nearby to guide their preparations. Many South African coaches often miss out on overseas training camps due to funding challenges, but Mathibedi considers himself fortunate that his athletes are stepping in to make it possible. Meanwhile, veteran South African long-distance runner Stephen Mukoka says that the reason he keeps returning to the Cape Town Marathon is because of the attractive deal that's offered by the race organizers. Mukoka is the most successful South African in the 42-kilometer event, having won it 3 times, and the eagerly anticipated marathon with a prize money of 250,000 rands takes place on the 19th of October. Finally, in motorsport, McLaren's Lando Norris set the pace in the first practice at the Dutch Grand Prix. This is ahead of teammate Oscar Piastri and Aston Martin's Lance Stroll. The British driver set a blistering 1 minute 10.278 seconds to beat Piastri by 0.292 seconds, with the McLaren duo a long way ahead of the field on Formula One's return. Now, home hero Max Verstappen was 6th and nearly 1 second behind Norris, then beached his Red Bull in the gravel after the checkered flag. Then finally, Ashraf, before I leave, in terms of the predictions for this weekend, South Africa versus New Zealand, I think the Springboks are going to win this one. Springbok women versus Italy, unfortunately, I think Italy's going to win. Stellies versus Sundowns, I see a draw. And Liverpool versus Arsenal, I think Liverpool is going to win this one. Well, with that said,
Lina Lakake Trompokekana, I'm former Mamelodi Sundowns captain. I'm a sports analyst Lago SABC Sport. When I'm home, I try by all means to practice cooking. My favorite home cooked meal, I'll go for pap and masonja because I can prepare that with easy. What do I normally get up to when I get a moment to myself, where I would easily, play my guitar? I try to practice a lot of Tracy Chapman. My favorite foreign language is French. Bonjour, comment ça va? So if I didn't play beautiful football, I think I was gonna be a baseball player. What do I like about SABC Sport is the fact that we given an opportunity to educate.
Catch the exciting Diski analysis by Sompo Long Range Kekana on match days live on Latuma. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
This year, the Standard Bank Joy of Jazz Festival presents 3 unforgettable days deep in the art and heart of jazz. From the 26th, 27th and 28th of September, Umu Sankare, Ababemu, Jasmia Horn, Silent No and the Noisemakers, Najbonk Trio, Michelle Ndingio-Cello, Willem Siini, Gabby Mutuba, and over 50 world-class acts will be ready to welcome you and yours to 4 magnificent stages of the Sandton Convention Center. Take me there. Buy your tickets at Ticketmaster now.
Bafana Bafana will host Nigeria in a FIFA 2026 World Cup qualifier at the Toyota Stadium on Tuesday, 9 September at 6 p.m. Tickets are now available nationwide and online from 70 Rand for adults and 40 Rand for children at all Ticket Pro outlets, including Spar, Postnet, and all petrol stations. Get your tickets early to avoid disappointment. Come in Bafana Bafana supporter gear, ready to sing for a win. Gates will open at 3 p.m. If you are not in Bloemfontein, catch the game on SABC2. For more information, visit safa.net and at Bafana Bafana on all social media channels. Mzansi, the Powerball and Powerball Plus jackpots estimated at a total 85 million rand are your chance at an unforgettable Friday. Don't delay. Play Powerball for an estimated 37 million rand and Powerball Plus for an estimated 48 million rand today. Buy your tickets now in store on nationallottery.co.za, the mobile app, cell phone banking, or simply dial *120 *7529# for USSD. Panda, Pusha, play. Players must be 18 years old or play responsibly. eTuba is the proud operator of the National Lottery.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, let's close the week with what those numbers. Jimmy, what have you got?
Good afternoon, Ashraf. Good afternoon to the listeners. We're closing out the month of August in interesting territory on the local front. Equities across the board seemingly having a bearish day in international markets. Local equities, though, having a good day, largely driven by resources and industrials coming to the party. Financial sector stocks didn't do as well. They were down about 0.75%, but the rand gaining a bit of ground against the US dollar. 17 rand 67 was the last I had a look at it there. Interestingly enough, on the dollar's given back quite a bit of gains that we saw last month. We're set to close out this month on the dollar, having wiped out more than 50% of last month's gains. And today we got some interesting data from the US in the form of their preferred measure of inflation. Alongside the normal CPI figures that they get, the US also produces a personal consumption expenditure index that looks at the consumption expenditure habits of the U.S. citizens, and that is the U.S. Fed's preferred measure of inflation. So that came through today, came in line with expectations, but despite that, we just saw the dollar getting weaker today as well across all major currencies as well. So if you look at it against the euro, against the pound, against the Japanese yen, the dollar has been giving back a bit of gains there. The gold price shooting up as well off the back of that weaker dollar. They are obviously inversely related, and the gold price was at $3,440 a fine ounce. Brent crude still below $70 a barrel, which is still good news. Platinum and palladium holding steady pretty much where they've been for the majority of the week. Going into the new week, we start off the new month on Monday, the new trading month, and this is the last quarter of the year. And of course, it's a bit of a shortened quarter with the shortened trading days in December. So we'll look to see how we shape up for the last quarter of the year. Typically, this is the time for the big push from some of the markets. We see some gains continuing, but we'll have to see how this one shapes up because it has really been a really good year up until this point. So we go into the weekend with a stronger rand, a firmer all-share index, and a positive outlook into the rest of the year. I think more positive than we have seen in the last couple of years going into this part of the year. This year's been a really good year for South Africa's markets and other markets, and hopefully that continues. But for now, we take the win going into the weekend. Back to you, Ashraf.
Okay, perfect. You enjoy your weekend. We will certainly connect, on Monday. Absolutely, Jimmy. Thanks for that. Right. It means we have more with Mbali Ntuli, and we do that right after this.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Okay, in fact, we will connect with her in just a moment. Let's just see if there's some voice notes we can play in the meantime. You're there.
Hi, Ashraf. This is Ndomi from Cape Town. I do think that some black people during the apartheid days had it better than other black people. So they had a better life then than they do now because maybe they had privileged parents, their parents were professionals, they went to better schools, they lived in better areas, everything was much better for them than it is now. But I do think it's a shallow comment to say things were better during the apartheid, taking into account what had happened, and this is coming from somebody that was not born during those times. Thanks.
Well, thank you. I mean, you're right. You have to look at the whole picture. It's not like, you've got a nice boat, so the world is great in the 1960s or 70s because you had a nice boat and the rest of the country is burning. For example, you have to look at what is good for the majority of South Africans, and it certainly was not.
Ashraf, I don't know about this president of this country. Should I even call him the president of this country? Cyril Ramaphosa finds any which way to be out of this country or to be on an international platform. He doesn't address the problems, the issues, the pressing issues in our country. It shows the disdain he has for the citizens of this country. He needs to be home and try at least to sort things out. Teresa.
Thanks for that, Teresa. Well, there you are. Certainly, Teresa is very, very disillusioned with the president. Here's another. In fact, we'll get to that in just a moment. What we'll do, okay, we do have, in fact, Mbali Ntuli right now back on the line. So after that break, Mbali, let's get then into the oft-repeated question that I see on so many platforms. Is like, what in your mind as a young South African gave you the audacity to challenge for the leadership of the DA? And we know you don't win it, otherwise I'll be addressing you differently today. And with hindsight, Not so much whether you were right or wrong, but what are the big lessons you've learned from that experience?
I didn't feel audacious about it at all. I felt that I was fully capable and that I could do it. And I also felt that the person I was challenging had flaws that would render him incapable of bringing the party together in a way that I thought could grow significantly. And so for me, it didn't seem like an audacious thing at all. I mean, obviously, it was a big undertaking and very challenging and was during COVID, but I didn't have doubts that if I had been elected, I would have been able to deliver. But I think that that comes also from many years of having done that before. I've ran many campaigns for the Democratic Alliance. I'd led their provincial campaign, which was one of the few provinces in 2019 to grow in seats and numbers. I had started all of the township branches in the north of Durban, and I had started an entire constituency of 5 rural municipalities in Kanyagute. I was also a great parliamentarian. I was able to put in many motions and really mobilize and organize. And so for me, it wasn't, and I don't say this arrogantly at all, I wasn't being audacious. I was being incredibly worried about the direction of the party at the time and not seeing anybody else willing to put their hands up. And I didn't want to stay in a situation where I felt like a victim or always going to be complaining. So I decided to do something about it.
So when people say, pick up your hands, you were doing that, raising your hands, I could do a job,
Yeah. And I think, the biggest things that were thrown at me in that election were that I was too young, that, society is still patriarchal. They wouldn't vote for a woman if the DA had voted for, despite the fact that Helen had been voted for. And just a general sense of, I think, trepidation from people who feared what might be new. And so I think the biggest lesson I took from that was that I actually should have gone more gung-ho. I think already at the time, people in the DA thought that I ran a campaign that was far too aggressive. And I actually was holding back a lot because there was just so much negativity around the entire campaign. But now I feel like I should have actually gone far more for the jugular.
And what would that have meant? Go for the jugular. Give me a manifestation of that. I'm very interested to know.
I think I was generous in letting things slide. For example, I asked for a debate, and people were scared to debate me publicly and wanted to do it behind closed doors, which I think, quite frankly, was rigged. And there were things that were institutionally being changed at the last minute all the time against the campaign. And I was, I think, more gracious than I should have been and trying to do the bigger person thing because already I'd been labeled as this young girl. I was being mindful not to seem, like I was, petulant or whatever. Whereas I think I should have actually just gone for the kill. And there was lots of other stuff that I could have used that I decided not to because I wanted to win in a way that I felt my conscience could live with. And when I look back at it, actually, it's not that I would have not been able to live with it. It's that I was thinking far more empathetically for the other person when they wouldn't have afforded me the same courtesy. And I'm not saying that you must go low all the time when people are low, but certainly sometimes that might be the way to galvanize other people who are looking and want a fighter like that.
You used amongst the many things you've just said. Now you used the word jugular and kill. Is that? Look, I'm not in politics. I've been at some form of elections at school, right? That's it. And I've been privileged to be elected to chair many organizations or bodies. But hey, that's not the same as yours, right? Is it that sort of a dogfight, and even worse?
It shouldn't have to be. I mean, a lot of what I ran on was, strong, kind, and fair. And I really am that way, I think, totally in the way that I conduct myself. But there is also, I think, a level, and I mean, this is also the unconscious bias that I suppose as a woman, you kind of told all the time, to sometimes be nicer. And I would not have ever described myself that. But looking back at some of the campaign stuff, I feel like, Ahmed, I actually should have said this. I could have said that. And I was trying to be too polite about this when I should have been as, candid as I always am. But it was a different time, and I also knew that people were waiting for me to be the sort of not afraid of conflict person that I am, and would have also then used it against me. So it was very much a balancing act of not scaring the middle ground into thinking I was this, really, aggressive person. And so, you learn, you live and you learn.
And I mean, just the last thing on the DA before we get to the break. Assuming by whatever reason you were actually elected the leader of the DA, where do you think your party would have been now?
It's hard to say, just because I think I would have had to spend a lot more time also consolidating the DA under me, whereas my opponent at the time was the acting leader and could just get on with it right into the election. I think the culture that I would have liked to have created would have been a better one with a lot more support and just a lot less toxicity from the DA that I left. And I also think I would have worked far harder at uplifting more leaders into the spotlights. I don't think that when people think of the DA, they can name more than 10 people. And that to me shows either there's no depth of leadership or the leadership isn't being spotlighted in a way that shows the best.
Okay, I'll now ask you about the state of I want to ask you about the state of the country, which I'll do right after this.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
UJ ladies are gunning for victory. Meanwhile, TS Galaxy want to showcase why they are called the Queens. Who will walk away from the battlefield with jubilance? This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Catch UJ Ladies versus TS Galaxy Queens the Sunday 31 August at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC 1. Also available everywhere for everyone, always on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Mzansi, the Powerball and Powerball Plus jackpots estimated at a total 85 million rand are your chance at an unforgettable Friday. Don't delay. Play Powerball for an estimated 37 million rand and Powerball Plus for an estimated 48 million rand today. Buy your tickets now in store on nationallottery.co.za, the mobile app, cell phone banking, or simply dial *120 *7529# for USSD. Panda, Pusha, play. Players must be 18 years old or play responsibly. E2 is the proud operator of the National Lottery.
This Women's Month, SAFM stands with the women shaping South Africa's future. Under the theme, Building Resilient Economies for All. We honor the pioneers, the problem solvers, and the everyday heroes driving change. Stay tuned as SAFM brings you powerful stories and meaningful conversations that move us. SAFM, celebrating women, celebrating progress. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. Ashraf Garda on the National Pulse.
Okay, let's get to the last few minutes of our chat with Mbali Ntuli as part of the Friday Fireside Chat. Just a quick thought. We'll have a full-on conversation about this some other time, but just your pronouncement of the state of the nation.
I think one of the things that I'm very lucky about is that I work with a lot of young people, and they really stop me sometimes from being overly cynical. But I think we are in a terrible space in many, many ways. We haven't seen a lot of change, I think, that people expected to see, with the GNU. I mean, I always thought it was going to take some while anyway, but I think a lot of people are feeling disappointed. There are some green shoots. I mean, Eskom, Transnet, looking at some of the work that they're doing, SAA even, there's definitely some form of slight turnaround. There's some projections that we might even get to 2% economic growth. We'll wait to see. But it's a little too late. And I think that next year's election is going to have all the political parties really tearing their hair out because South Africans are absolutely sick and tired of everyone. And even if you have done something great, we're so cynical now, we just don't believe it, that it's going to take a lot to really get us out of this feeling that most politicians and political parties are ruining our country.
So therefore,
would you,
would you see, therefore, next year's local government election in a strange way as a referendum of the current leadership of the country?
I think every election from now until probably 2034 is going to be a referendum on the current leadership. The problem that I think most voters face is if they don't like anyone, they're not sure whether they should stay away or still go to it. And, you know, as you all know, staying away means nothing because we don't count votes that stay away. But it also, I think, is psychologically difficult to vote for some of the charlatans we see. So South Africans, unless they're going to be willing to really start holding politicians to account, are going to feel as though they don't have much choice with what we currently see. And then it's going to scatter the votes even more. And then we might get more chaos. But I also do love it for the era of our country being more robust in watching politicians. And I think we all are very gleeful with the things that we're seeing in the news with people being busted. And I surely hope that the patronage taps are going to be closed for a lot more people. And then we'll see who's the leaders and who's not, really.
Absolutely. We've got about 4 minutes to go. Sal Ruster's here. A book that you recommend that we must read?
Oh my God, Ashraf, there's so many books. You can't just ask me that.
All right, think about it. Think about it. It may come to you just now, right? Who would you like to take out to lunch? And you haven't done this with that person before.
I'd like to take out Jacinda Ardern. Or do you mean South African?
It means anybody.
Yeah, I'd like to hear Jacinda Ardern's version of her life and being a woman leading in politics at the time that she did.
Yeah, well, that would be fascinating, yeah. Now, what about a young South African? I mean, can you give a young South African a shout out?
There's a young South African called Miranda Mafumo who's doing some amazing work with water around our country. And I think that he, he's a water champion. He's trying to find innovative ways to save water, get water to people. And, coming from a province that is water scarce despite having so many big dams, and also having witnessed so many people in rural areas who have to wait and queue for water, I think some of the work that he's doing is going to be very revolutionary, and it already has been. So I love young people that are trying, their best to try and bring innovative solutions to the crises that we have. And there's so many actually that I can think of. But yeah, that was the first that came top of mind.
I think I get a sense of what your purpose is, but what do you think the national purpose ought to be?
Depends on who's figuring that purpose out. I mean, we've just had the national dialogue, and I thought it was a mistake to maybe not have started with looking at the NDP and where we said we would be at this time, and then looking at whether we need to have some conversations about that. But I couldn't tell you what our national purpose is. I would have thought that it would be creating jobs with the greatest sense of urgency, but that doesn't seem to be shared by the people in power. So I don't know if they could tell us either.
Mm-hmm. What's the one great life lesson you've learned? I mean, you've learned many, but just one quick one.
Approach everyone that you meet with just, curiosity and dignity and empathy about getting to understand them. I mean, I was talking to the Wits students about this. I was saying to them, I greet everyone, I talk to everyone. And as a result, I think, through those interactions, I probably raised about, just over 20 million. I talk to people on the plane, I speak to everyone, and I think that makes you interested in humans. And I think if you can really master that, then you'll always be able to be the kind of person that can adapt and be in any situation and also lead.
I think that's very sane advice. We've got a minute to go. If you had to ask Ramaphosa just one question, one short, sharp question, that would be what?
There's so many, but I actually really want to know the true story about that money in the couch. It really pisses me off because what was going on there?
I wonder if he'll reply to you. If you had a chance to ask Trump one question, what would that be?
Where are the Epstein files?
Okay, there we are. How would you like to be remembered? I mean, our time's almost up, so how would you like to be remembered? You're young, but hey, think of
As
legacy.
somebody that was dedicated to the empowerment of young South Africans, and that was willing to really go the extra mile, making sure that people understood that they had more power than they thought they did and how to use it.
And just a quick one as we wrap up. What is your advice to people who think less of South Africa now? We have problems, but what hope can you give them?
You should never discount us, never count us out as South Africans. I mean, everyone saw what was happening in the Springbok rugby. Just at the last moment, you thought you would have been written off. We came back, and I think that that's a testament to our true nature as South Africans. Yes, we're in a wobbly bit, but I have no doubt that something's about to happen that's going to make sure that we go on the other direction. So I would never count us out as South Africans.
Okay, let's leave it
It's
at
a
that.
mistake.
Never
Right.
discount, never count South Africans out. I like that. Mbalia and Tuli, your time now is up, but I think that conversation on the national dialogue versus the national development plan is something we ought to have sometime soon. I look forward to that. Much appreciate you giving up your time here.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure on the
Have a good
Friday
evening.
Fireside Chat. There we are. Thank you so much. Right, it's time for the news at 6.
Thank you again, Ashraf. Enjoy the weekend ahead. In this news update, concern over illegal firearms and a fuel price drop on the cards. Good evening. The National Police Commissioner Fani Masemola says illegal firearms remain a huge concern across the world. He was speaking at the Interpol Regional Conference in Cape Town, which wrapped up today.
Illegal firearms have become a problem, and these firearms, of course, they are manufactured across the globe and they are transshipped also across internationally. They are a tool to commit crime, and it is firearms that leave families stranded, distraught, and accompanied by the scourge of drugs that is also being transshipped across the globe.
Taxi Council Sintako in Ekululeni, east of Johannesburg, says taxi operations have now resumed following a strike that left commuters stranded for 2 days. Taxi operators halted services following the impounding of their vehicles by authorities.